What's up guys, this is your favorite fanfic YouTuber, the Fanfic Majesty, and welcome to another amazing video. You can follow me on Patreon for exclusive stories. 3KN Chapter 46 Diamante was defeated in seconds. Yangzi was scared to death, first order on 5/10. HP Pavilion X 361 for Conqueror Heiyi Baiji Bushing Dian now 14 EK 1025 TU Yensei D13 Dai Intel Core i5 Chu Li Chi Windows. This boy is a monster like the young master. Diamante's heart palpitated. As one of the highest officials of the Don Quixote family, Diamante knew very well how terrifying his young master Doflamingo was. That was why he had to show extreme fear for the boy in front of him who possessed Conqueror's Haki. A boy who, like his young master, also possessed the potential of a king and mastered Conqueror's Haki. Moreover, the most terrifying thing was the other party's age. Only 16 years old, already able to control Conquerors so skillfully. If I'm not mistaken, the culprit who destroyed the family's arms trade before should be this young man in front of us. If not, this group of crooked Marines alone would not have the ability to destroy the arms trade between us and the Vinsmoke family. Diamante suddenly realized, there is a monster of this level in the Marine. Yangji's face turned pale and he was terrified. Their advantage was gone in an instant. The more than 2,000 pirates who were their biggest reliance before were killed instantly by the monster on the opposite side and fell to the ground and unconscious. The only remaining fighting force on their side is just the two of them. Hey, what should we do now? Yangzi looked at Diamante beside him with fear and shock. The 1,200 clone soldiers led by him, plus Don Quixote, the two pirate groups under the family, with a total of 2,000 people, have been completely wiped out. If the enemy they faced was just that group of Marines, Yangzi still had enough confidence to escape unscathed from the encirclement of the Marines. But the problem now is, they are not only facing that group of Marines, but also the boy in front of them who is only 15 or 16 years old. This boy is the most terrifying existence. Miscalculated. Diamante exhaled heavily and tried to keep a calm mind to analyze the current situation. If they had known that there was such a terrible monster in the Marine branch of the Mushroom, 583, town in North Blue, they would never have come to attack so rashly. At this point, even if they regretted it in their hearts, it would be useless. How to break the situation? This will be the only problem they need to think about next. There is a group of Marines surrounding them in front, and a monster with Conquerors is staring at them from behind. The strong sense of crisis makes Diamante's brain turn more efficiently than ever before. But even if he racked his brains, he couldn't think of a way to break the situation. It can only be a head-on confrontation. Be prepared to fight this monster. Diamante looked at Yangzi and reminded him in a low voice, next, you and I need to join forces to deal with this monster. You should also know how terrifying a monster that has mastered Conqueror's Haki is. The only way we can break the situation is to fight our way out from the front. Repel the young man in front of us as much as possible. Only in this way can we successfully escape from Mushroom Town. As for the group of men you and I brought, speaking of this, Diamante turned his head, with a deep palpitation buried under his eyelids, staring at the group of subordinates who fell to the ground. Looking around, they were densely packed, crooked, and one by one, the subordinates were lying flat, motionless. He looked fierce. We can only leave them here temporarily. The most urgent task is to get the two of us out safely and escape the capture of this group of Marines. Then, tell the young master and the head of your Vinsmoke family what happened here. A monster with Conqueror's Haki is obviously not something we can contend with. We can only let the young master and your head of the family think about it in the long run. When making this decision, Diamante did not have any psychological burden. Even if he abandoned the two pirate groups under the command of Don Quixote family, he would not feel guilty about abandoning 800 pirates. After all, in Diamante's eyes, these pirates are at best a group of cannon fodder. Only the real members of Don Quixote family will make Diamante care. But it is obvious. These pirates are not qualified to be real family members. If you want to deal with a monster with Conqueror's Haki, perhaps only my young master can do it. Or, let the head of your Vinsmoke family come forward in person, and there will be an 80% chance of winning. As for the others, sending more of them would just mean they would die. The human wave tactics are useless against a monster that has mastered Conquerors. The more Diamante spoke, the heavier his mood became. IZZT. That's 1,200 clone soldiers, moreover, they are fully armed clone soldiers. Are you just going to give up on them? Yangzi was a little angry and unwilling. Although it was a very simple thing for the Vinsmoke family to mass-produce clone soldiers. But the weapons and equipment on these clone soldiers were mass-produced by the Vinsmoke family with great effort, and the price was very expensive. If they were to be abandoned like this, Yangzi would inevitably feel very sad. Do you have any other ideas? Diamante asked back. Yangzi was speechless. Don't even mention letting us take this group of men away. Now, even whether you and I can get away safely is a huge unknown. Get ready. Next, it's a battle between you and me, and this monster in front of us. Diamante slowly took out the samurai sword he carried on his waist. He looked solemnly, staring at the young man in front of him. As if facing a great enemy, as if facing a flood beast. I know it without you telling me, Yangzi felt very annoyed. He immediately activated the technological suit he was wearing and immediately entered combat mode. The two looked at Luen with caution, at the same time. As more than 2,000 pirates were killed in an instant, all the Marines present were naturally shocked, with horror on their faces, and they were unable to calm down. Did you see it? Karen propped up his scarred body and said to the already dumbfounded Lieutenant Colonel Moderson beside him, "This is the terrifying thing about Colonel Luen. No matter how many enemies there are. Whether it's 2,000 pirates or 20,000 pirates. No matter how many people there are, in front of Colonel Luen, it's just a small problem that can be solved in an instant. Now, it's the turn of those two damn pirates to feel the powerlessness and despair that dominated our bodies and minds just now." Presumably, facing such a terrifying monster like Colonel Luen, these two hateful pirates are at the end of their rope and have no other options. Hearing this, Moderson, who was shocked, woke up. He stared blankly at the scene where more than 2,000 pirates were killed in seconds, his throat dry, and he blurted out subconsciously, "Is this the legendary Conqueror's Haki? Although I have heard of this kind of power that only monsters with the potential of the king can control. But when I really saw it with my own eyes, 2,000 people were killed in an instant. This shocking scene inevitably made Moderson feel shocked, horrified, and out of control. Witnessing the horror of Conqueror's Haki for the first time almost completely refreshed Moderson's worldview. Colonel Luen is indeed a terrible monster. He said from the bottom of his heart. He couldn't help but recall that he had tried to provoke such a level of existence before, and he felt bitter in his heart. A monster who was awarded the rank of colonel by the Naval Headquarters as soon as he joined the job was indeed extraordinary. Convinced. This time, he was completely convinced. The situation that forced our entire Marine branch into a desperate situation was easily resolved by Colonel Lu Shi in just a moment with the return of Colonel Luen. I now have a more intuitive understanding of the strength of Colonel Luen. Moderson was amazed. All around. Witnessing the huge reversal of the situation on the scene in a short period of time. And saw 2,000 people being killed instantly. These shocking scenes made a kind of Marine amazed and opened their eyes. So strong, is this what Colonel Luen does? He is indeed a young man who was awarded the rank of colonel. Now, it's the turn of those two damn pirates to sweat profusely. You were so arrogant just now, right? Why don't you try to be arrogant now? Warship. On the deck. The Marines, led by Bart, smiled. From beginning to end, they never doubted Luen's strength. Of course. Except for Bart, who had already witnessed the terrifying power of Conqueror's Haki. Other Marines who saw Conqueror's Haki kill 2,000 people in seconds for the first time were also shocked. On the battlefield. Diamante holds a samurai sword, which is actually a Western-style rapier. His eyes are solemn, and he dare not be careless. Beside him, Yangzi is fully armed and ready. Go. With a loud shout from Diamante, Yangzi attacks at the same time. The two of them suddenly launched a surprise attack on Luen. Without any signs. Diamante directly uses the Devil Fruit ability. As a Paramecia floating fruit ability user, he can turn all objects into a soft form like canvas. So, the rapier in his hand, like a snake, becomes extremely curved, and along Diamante's right hand, it suddenly rushes to Luen in front. Sword snake sword. Diamante is fully focused and alert. He knows. What kind of terrifying monster is this young boy in front of him? So, as soon as he makes a move, he has already gone all out. There is no reservation at all, holding back in front of such a monster? Unless he is tired of living. Swish, the rapier in Diamante's hand turned into a flexible snake, rushing forward without any regularity, the blade breaking through the space, bursting out a sharp and piercing sound of breaking through the air. In an instant, the rapier has arrived in front of Luen. Stabbed at Luen's forehead. While Diamante launched a surprise attack, Yangzi activated the technology suit and approached at a very fast speed, wanting the two of them to attack Luen together. Facing a person who mastered Conqueror's Haki, the two naturally did not dare to have the slightest contempt or carelessness. They attacked with all their strength as soon as they attacked. Diamante had already used armament Haki, not seeking to defeat Luen, but only to repel the opponent. Thus, giving them 10 opportunities to escape completely. He didn't dare to expect to defeat a monster like Luen. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, the attack of Diamante and Yangzi was very swift and fierce. The two of them attacked together. If it was any Marine colonel, he would probably be defeated in one move. Unfortunately, they were facing Luen. Luen just slightly turned sideways. Easily avoided the attack launched by Diamante. The body's subconscious nerve reaction in an instant easily avoided Diamante's painstakingly brewed attack. It also made Yangji's offensive next to him completely disrupted and unable to aim at the target. Good, so fast. Diamante, who was shocked by Luen's strong god-tier reaction ability, couldn't help but tremble slightly with fear in his right hand holding the rapier. He had fought with his young master Doflamingo once, but Luen in front of him the pressure and brought to Diamante was even greater than when he faced his young master. This made Diamante unbelievable. Who is his young master? He is one of the 7 warlords of the sea, the real top powerhouse of the sea. Even if you look at the New World, he is also one of the top powerhouses. And the marine boy in front of him is only 15 or 16 years old. How could he bring him a pressure far beyond that of the young master? What kind of monster is this? Even though Luen didn't have too many fancy moves, Diamante could still feel the overwhelming pressure from the former, which made him. His heart trembled. Fancy, waste of time. Deal with you, clock out early. Luen's voice sounded faintly. It lingered in Diamante's ears. It surprised him. Clock out? What is this? What do you think of me? I am one of the highest officials of Don Quixote family. You dare to insult me? This is intolerable. As Diamante turned around, I saw. A palm was infinitely enlarged in Diamante's pupils, like the five-finger mountain falling from the sky, filling all his sight. Luen grabbed Diamante's head with one hand, and with a little force, he squeezed and twisted the latter's facial features, causing the latter to scream and wail in pain. Ah! Diamante's limbs were weak, and the western sword in his hand slid down and fell into the soil at his feet. And his whole body was controlled by Luen with one hand. His facial features were deformed by the opponent's palm, and the stinging sensation from his face made Diamante wail in pain. He was exhausted and unable to resist. His whole body was also grabbed by Luen. Grabbing Diamante's entire face with one hand, Luen then pressed it hard to the ground next to him. Boom! One hand pressed Diamante's head hard to the ground, causing a 3.6-second loud roar to be heard throughout the ground. It was deafening. Diamante vomited blood, his eyes rolled back, and his head was buzzing. The head-on collision between his head and the ground made him feel the sound of his skull breaking, and his whole brain was blank. He looked very miserable. The shockwave caused by this loud noise caused the entire ground to collapse, and the dust on the ground flew all over the sky. Countless gravel flew everywhere. Crack, crack. The ground surface was cracked. The ground around Diamante, where Luen had pressed his head down with one hand, began to crack in all directions, with spider webs densely packed and riddled with holes. The area within a radius of 5 meters sank downward, and even Luen, who was standing next to him, moved several centimeters downward. As for Diamante, he completely lost consciousness. His eyes rolled back, blood spit out of his mouth, and his mind was scattered. He was pressed to the ground by Luen, motionless, unconscious, and paralyzed. Dust fell from the sky, and Luen's slightly bent waist slowly straightened. He twisted his arm and patted the bloodline and dust on his right hand. He released his right hand that was pressing Diamante's head. At his feet, Diamante was paralyzed like a dead dog, and completely fainted. His head was swollen and red like a pig's head, and his whole face was covered with broken scars, and he looked particularly miserable. At this point, the pirate with a bounty of over 100 million berry, one of the highest officials of the Don Quixote family, was killed by Luen with one hand in just one encounter. He had no chance to fight back. Witnessing the scene of Diamante being killed by Luen with one hand, the youngest son of the Vinsmoke family, Yangzi, who was about to launch a surprise attack on Luen, immediately felt a chill from the soles of his feet to the top of his head. His hair stood on end, and he shuddered. Yangji's whole body became stiff and he dared not move. The surprise attack that was originally planned to be launched on Luen was also abruptly stopped and aborted. Chapter 47 Sengoku is confused. What the hell? Is this solved? First order on 6/10. HP 15.6 Kun Baiji Bushing Dian Now 15's FQ5057 TUD12 Die Intel Core i5 Chu Li Chi Windows 11 Jia Yang Band 15.6 inches, Dui Zhao. Gurgle, Yangji's throat rolled and he couldn't help swallowing his saliva. He stood there motionless, his body seemed to have turned into a stone sculpture. He lowered his head and looked at Diamante, who was not far away and was pinned to the ground, like a dead dog. This scene caused a very strong visual impact on Yangzi, and filled his heart with fear, shock, and disbelief. Just a face-to-face, Diamante was killed instantly. Killed instantly by that monster boy with one hand. He couldn't even resist. Although Diamante was not a big pirate, he was at least a strong man with a bounty of hundreds of millions. Yangzi never thought his teammates were so vulnerable. A pirate with a bounty of hundreds of millions was killed instantly in a face-to-face encounter. What the hell? He kept saying that he wanted to join forces with me to attack that monster. In the end, you are just this level? How dare you? Yangzi, who was cold all over, didn't dare to act rashly again. Now, it was his turn to sweat profusely. After Diamante was killed instantly, he was the only one left fighting alone. He didn't think he would be a match for the monster in front of him. Didn't you see that even Diamante was killed instantly? After all, the other party was one of the highest cadres of the Don Quixote family, and he was killed so easily. This made Yangzi not have any idea of resisting the other party. As if Yangzi was scared out of his wits. Seeing Diamante being killed instantly, Yangzi seemed to be straightforward and just gave up on the spot. How can this monster be so strong? He looked at the boy who had knocked Diamante down with one hand, and couldn't help but roar in fear in his heart. At the same time, Luen, who had killed Diamante casually and had completed half of the task of clocking out early, slowly turned around and looked at the youngest son of the Vinsmoke family who was shivering all over at the moment. Being stared at by Luen, Yangzi was even more trembling and trembling all over. It's not that his psychological quality is too poor. It's purely, the oppression Luen brought to him was too terrifying. This oppression was even more than facing the head of the family, Vinsmoke Judge. Yangzi 29 was pale, his lips trembled, and he spoke incoherently. Luen didn't say anything, just looked at Yangzi quietly. Unable to bear Luen's sharp eyes, Yangzi was frightened and sweating, and he took off his high-tech suit directly. I surrender. Don't be impulsive. Yangzi was very honest. He took off his high-tech suit immediately after saying he surrendered, and his combat effectiveness plummeted. Without his combat suit, I'm afraid even Colonel Karen could compete with Yangzi. Don't look, come here. Cuff him. Cuff all those people lying on the ground. Even the last one who still had the ability to resist, Yangzi, has announced his surrender. This battle between Marine and the Don Quixote family and Vinsmoke family has officially come to an end. Marine won a great victory. Although it paid a heavy price in the early stage, it was only because Luen did not return. With the return of Luen, Kumanshi came to an end with a crushing attitude. First, he killed 2,000 people in seconds with Conqueror's Haki. Then, he killed Diamante in seconds with one hand. Yangzi was so scared that he immediately surrendered. So far, Luen easily solved the biggest problem that troubled the Marine branch alone. As Luen's order was issued, Marine officers such as Karen and Moderson dragged their wounded bodies and hurried over. Until now, they still feel like a dream. Victory came too easily and suddenly. Colonel Luen, we embarrassed you. Karen felt a little ashamed. If Luen hadn't returned in time, I'm afraid that the group of Marines led by him would inevitably suffer the tragic fate of being killed one by these pirates. As the highest commander of the Marine branch in Mushroom Town, Karen naturally needs to take the greatest responsibility for this matter. We'll talk about these things later. The most urgent thing now is to lock up all these people first. Colonel Karen, these things are left to you, okay? Luen said bluntly. He didn't have the time to participate and interfere too much in the trivial matters of locking up these pirates. Moreover, he had to leave Karen, Moderson and other Marines a little chance to make up for their mistakes. Understood. Karen nodded solemnly. Then, Luen left without looking back. Preparing to return to the Marine branch to clock out. Before leaving, Luen left a message for Karen. I almost forgot. Remember to notify Marshal Sengoku. Tell him that everything has been resolved. As for how to write a report to Marshal Sengoku, that's up to you, Colonel Karen. After saying that, Luen disappeared. Only Karen was left to lead Moderson and his group of Marines who were also injured. They vented their anger on the pirates who fell to the ground and detained them all. What are you still watching? Come down and help. You want to be lazy, right? Do you think you are Colonel Luen? Do you want to clock out early? Karen looked at Bart and other Marines on the deck of the warship and scolded them without hesitation. Understood. Bart woke up immediately and left the warship with a group of Marines. First, the warship was anchored at the shore, and then it landed on the port coast of Mushroom Town. According to Karen's instructions, the unconscious pirates on the ground were detained one by one. They were handcuffed and chained one by one. All of a sudden, all the Marines were busy. Only Luen, the person involved, had officially clocked out and stopped asking about these things. After dealing with the detention of several pirates, Karen came to Yangzi and looked at the latter's pale face. Karen laughed. Remember what I said before? I said? You guys don't know what kind of monster you are facing. Do you believe it now? Hearing this, Yangzi sat on the ground without responding, looking confused. He didn't know how to explain to his father judge now. He led a full 1,200 fully armed clone soldiers, but he lost. How should he explain this? Moreover, he lost to one person, a teenager who was only 15 or 16 years old. This made it even more difficult for Yangzi to speak. Forget it. Why should I think so much? I'm already a prisoner. Shouldn't the issues I should consider now be whether the prison food is delicious? Yangzi sighed bitterly. He led 1,200 fully modernized clone soldiers, but faced an unprecedented tragic defeat. This was the most miserable defeat Yangzi had ever encountered in his life. The whole field was overturned by that monster alone. And they had no power to fight back the whole time. A miserable defeat. 2,000 people, but couldn't even deal with one person. Fit. That monster is carrying conquerors. It's a real monster of the sea. Is it reasonable that we would lose miserably? Yangzi began to comfort himself. Soon. He was handcuffed by Karen with high-strength handcuffs. To prevent the other party from breaking free, he had to use harder handcuffs and anklets. Diamante was even simpler. Diamante, who fell to the ground, was like a dead dog, unable to resist the whole time. The other party, as a demon fruit power, Kalansong just needs to put Hailu handcuffs on the opponent's right hand. Except for a few demon fruit powers who are as strong as monsters, other ability users will immediately become weak and unable to move once they are handcuffed with seastone handcuffs. Let alone resistance. Even moving is a huge problem. Obviously, Diamante is not an individual exception with a physique as strong as a monster. About 10 or 20 minutes passed. All 2,000 pirates were imprisoned. Including Diamante, one of the highest cadres of Don Quixote family, and Yangzi, the youngest son of Vinsmoke family. They should be imprisoned by Colonel Garron himself. So far, everything is over. The first time the two famous families joined forces, they faced an unprecedented tragic defeat. Finally solved. After successfully imprisoning these pirates, Garron just exhaled heavily and was about to take out the phone to contact Marshal Sengoku. Unexpectedly, the phone suddenly rang by itself. Baloo Baloo, the unique sound of the Den Den Mushi sounded. Karen was slightly stunned, and then quickly answered the call. As expected, Sengoku's voice came from the phone. I have ordered to mobilize the Marines in the nearby waters to Mushroom Town for reinforcement. However, the fastest one will take an hour to reach Mushroom Town. The slowest one may even take 4 hours. Can you still hold on? Luen should have returned to Mushroom Town, right? How is the situation? Can you still hold on? Sengoku's voice was anxious and particularly low. Although there are many marine branches in North Blue, the Marine family is big and powerful, and they are not afraid of losing a marine branch like Mushroom Town. But this kind of marine branch that was blatantly attacked by the pirates and was about to be destroyed made Sengoku express special anger and concern. With the first precedent, will there be a second time? A third time? Will Marines still have dignity in this sea at that time? This is what Sengoku is most worried about. Some things happen again and again. Once the Marines lose their dignity, the sea will become even more chaotic. Once some order is broken, it will be a real big trouble. Marshal Sengoku, you can let the Marines who came to reinforce return to the original route. We have successfully dealt with the group of pirates who came to attack. The attackers mobilized by the Don Quixote family and the Vinsmoke family together, a total of 2,000 people. Including Diamante, one of the highest cadres of the Don Quixote family, and the youngest son of the Vinsmoke family, Yuji. All were arrested and detained. Karen told the truth. FK? Sengoku was stunned immediately. He took a long time to come back to his senses. It took a long time. Sengoku made a shocking voice. It has been solved. 2 famous families joined forces and organized a full 2,000 people to attack your Mushroom Town. Did you solve it so quickly? Did Luen do it? This is the only possibility Sengoku can think of. With the overall strength of those Marines in North Blue, it is obviously not enough to resist the joint attack of the 2 families. Only Luen is the only variable. It is also the biggest variable. Yes. Karen told the truth and told the whole story. Colonel Luen returned to Mushroom Town half an hour ago. Then, facing the siege of 2,000 people, Colonel Luen once again used Conqueror's Haki and instantly killed 2,000 pirates. Finally, facing the siege of the 2 pirates Diamante and Yangzi, Colonel Luen even killed Don Quixote family's Daishidi with one hand in just one encounter. And the youngest son of Vinsmoke family, Yuji, was so frightened that he took off his high-tech combat suit and surrendered. The whole process probably took less than 2 minutes. After speaking, Sengoku, who was facing Den Den Mushi, was confused. So, a huge crisis against the North Blue Marine branch was completely resolved by Luen in less than 2 minutes? This kid's strength, it really surprised me a little. After a brief moment of shock, Sengoku came back to his senses and was amazed. Although Kizaru was a lazy guy, he finally did something that Sengoku had to praise highly. That was, let Kizaru's monster-like son join the Marine. This move was like sending a high-quality seedling of the future admiral to the Marine. Sengoku couldn't help but want to comfort and thank Kizaru for his hard work. What about Luen? He did such a big thing. I have to praise him. If all Marines can be like Luen, then as a Marine Marshal, I can save a lot of trouble. Sengoku said. Karen hesitated and said, Colonel Luen has already clocked out early. Sengoku was silent. Okay, that's how it works, right? Feelings. Kizaru, your nephew seems to be no different from you. They are both lazy and lazy. No, such a good seedling, as a good seedling for the future admiral. We can't let Kizaru, a lazy guy, lead him astray. We must let Luen return to the right path. Sengoku secretly made up his mind, after a moment. After hanging up the phone, Sengoku seemed to have thought of something, and a happy smile appeared on his face. Before, when he took the initiative to contact the heads of the Doflamingo and Vinsmoke families, the 2 people on the opposite side were arrogant and the other did not answer the call directly. At that time, he was so angry that he gnashed his teeth. Now it's good. The crisis of the Mushroom Town Marine branch has been resolved. On the other hand, the Don Quixote family and the Vinsmoke family suffered heavy losses this time. One lost a family's top cadre, the other lost the youngest son of the family. In addition, there are 2,000 subordinates. All have been arrested and detained. This beautiful victory allowed Sengoku to vent his previous inner frustration and anger. He had a hunch. It won't be long. Whether it is Don Quixote family or Vinsmoke family, or Vinsmoke family, will take the initiative to contact him. After all, now it is not him, Sengoku, who needs help. It is those 2 families who need help. Doflamingo, Judge, you 2 were pretending to be noble before, right? How arrogant you were before, how embarrassed you are now. Based on Sengoku's analysis, he can basically conclude. These two families will never give up easily to rescue the arrested and detained family members. Of course, it is unlikely that they will use force to rescue them. The greater possibility is to seek a peaceful solution acceptable to both parties. Thinking of this, Sengoku's heart has begun to be impatient. He wants to return the anger he suffered before to those two hateful bastards with interest. This time, if you don't let your Don Quixote family and Vinsmoke family bleed hard, you can't save your family members. At the same time, this time, Don Quixote family and Vinsmoke family joined forces and dispatched a total of 2,000 people. They even sent their own top cadres and core family members to denounce the North Blue Marine Branch's big move. Naturally, they were closely watched by all forces in the Dark World at all times. So, with the tragic defeat of the 2,000 people led by Diamante and Yangtze, the news disappeared immediately and spread throughout North Blue at a very fast speed. It even reached the ears of all forces in the Dark World. The tragic defeat of Don Quixote and Vinsmoke family immediately caused a big earthquake in the Dark World. Chapter 48 The Guardian of Mushroom Town. The two major families are anxious. First Order on July 10th. North Blue. The entire sea area is ruled by the Vinsmoke family. Secretly, there are also many dark forces in North Blue. This day, with the news of the tragic defeat of the Don Quixote family and the Vinsmoke family, it spread from the mushroom town of North Blue, immediately causing a great earthquake in the entire North Blue. Because Marine had previously destroyed the arms deal between the two families, the forces of the entire Dark World were almost closely watching the two families, whether they would take retaliatory actions against the Sea Country in the future. And when they learned that the head of the Vinsmoke family sent out his youngest son Yangtze and the Don Quixote family sent out one of the highest cadres Diamante, the two of them personally led a full 2,000 people to attack the mushroom town with great fanfare. All the forces rooted in the Dark World were secretly shocked by this, and they believed that the Marine branch in the mushroom town of North Blue would suffer. The result was completely beyond their previous expectations. Two big families were defeated, the whole army was annihilated. The top cadre of Don Quixote family, Diamante, was arrested. Yangtze, the youngest son of Vinsmoke family, took the initiative to surrender. This news was unexpected to everyone in the Dark World, and also made them feel extremely shocked. This was the first time they heard of it. As the king of North Blue, Vinsmoke family would also have a moment of defeat. Moreover, it was a disastrous defeat. I thought that the combination of Vinsmoke and Don Quixote family would definitely destroy a marine branch, show the outside world the strength of the two families, and deter all forces. I never thought that they would lose. Can you believe this? This is the combination of Don Quixote and Vinsmoke families. Which of these two families is not one of the best in the world? Don Quixote family, as a famous family in New World, the head of the family is Doflamingo, one of the 7 warlords of the sea, and Vinsmoke family, as the king of North Blue, is not to be underestimated. The enemy they are facing is just a small marine branch in North Blue. Who would have thought that a small marine branch could cause the two families to return disastrously? Now even the marine stationed in North Blue has become so powerful? The entire Dark World was in an uproar, shocked and fearful. Although they are happy to see Vinsmoke and Don Quixote family was defeated. However, when the two families joined forces, they still faced a tragic defeat in the end. This made them afraid of the Marine of North Blue. It is not an exaggeration to say that the two families joined forces to sweep North Blue. The marine branch of a small mushroom town gave these two families a big defeat. Has the world changed? Even the Marine of North Blue is so fierce? With such strong strength, why don't they go to the Grand Line to make a name for themselves, but stay in a small North Blue to bully others? 1. Or, Don Quixote family and Vinsmoke family are not as strong as we imagined. They have always been just paper tigers, unable to withstand a single blow. People in the Dark World of North Blue secretly complained. At this time, someone revealed the truth. You have wrongly blamed these two families. It's not that they are too weak. It's just that they are too unlucky. They happened to run into 10 monsters. 10 monsters temporarily stationed in the Marine branch of North Blue Town. Many people expressed confusion. Monsters? Are there still strong people of this level in North Blue? Soon they got a response. It is said. The monster stationed in the Marine branch of Mushroom Town is called Luen, and he is the nephew of Kizaru Borsellino, one of the 3 Marine Admirals. This person is only 15 or 16 years old, but he is extremely powerful, as strong as a monster. He has inherited the talent of Admiral Kizaru, and there are even rumors that this person is even better than Admiral Kizaru. This is a real monster. Even if he is the same age, as strong as the 3 Marine Admirals, I am afraid he can't be compared with him. It can be imagined that this is a high-quality seedling for the future Marine Admiral. It is reasonable that Don Quixote and the Vinsmoke family would be defeated by such a monster. Suddenly, everyone in the Dark World suddenly realized. Kizaru Admiral's nephew. This person is the culprit who caused the two families to join forces but still returned without a fight in the end. He overthrew the two families by himself. Is it true? Is he so strong? That is to say, the 2,000 troops led by Diamante, the highest cadre of Don Quixote family, and Yuji, the youngest son of Vinsmoke family, faced a tragic defeat because of this teenager who was only 15 or 16 years old. Marine actually gave birth to such a terrible monster. In this case, won't our situation as pirates be more difficult in the future? I thought that the Marines would be in a period of transition in this generation. I never thought that such a terrible monster would emerge. The view was pulled back to Mushroom Town. With the defeat of Don Quixote and the Vinsmoke family, more than 2,000 people were arrested and imprisoned. The residents of Mushroom Town, who were originally terrified and uneasy, ran out of their houses and onto the streets, excited and rejoicing. At the beginning, with more than 2,000 pirates launching a fierce attack on Mushroom Town at the same time, the residents of Mushroom Town were inevitably tense and desperate, premonition that Mushroom Town was about to fall under the pirates' bombardment attack. Then, when Karen, Moderson and other Marines were defeated one after another, the residents of Mushroom Town felt even more frightened and uneasy. *7#. The last critical moment, the savior of their Mushroom Town appeared. The boy named Luen, a boy who was only 15 or 16 years old. He became the savior of their Mushroom Town. He became the patron saint of hundreds of thousands of local residents in Mushroom Town. Some residents were lucky enough to witness the shocking scene of 2,000 people being killed in an instant, which they will never forget in their lives. Even though the boy was a little thin and not particularly tall, however, in the minds of the residents of Mushroom Town, this figure was as majestic as a patron saint. Saved. Marine 1. That damn pirate group, they have been annihilated. They were all defeated by the Marine colonel named Luen, a teenager who was only 15 or 16 years old. It's unbelievable. This teenager is too powerful. More than 2,000 pirates were killed instantly by him. Those vicious pirates were so weak in front of this teenager that they could not stand a single blow. Now I finally understand why when the teenager first arrived in Mushroom Town, even Colonel Karen, the highest commander of the Marine branch, followed the teenager like a little follower. This teenager is as strong as a monster. With such a strong man in charge of our Mushroom Town, we will never be attacked by pirates again. In short, with the tragic defeat of Vinsmoke and Don Quixote family today, Luen was directly N's reputation spread widely in this sea. It was spread by word of mouth. Pirates were extremely afraid of him. At the same time, when the news spread widely, attracting the attention and discussion of countless people in North Blue. The news had also been conveyed to Germa 66. When the news reached the ears of Judge, the head of the Vinsmoke family, Judge was furious, and the atmosphere of the entire Germa 66 became particularly depressing and full of haze.
Waste. Good for nothing. Judge was furious.
Father, it is difficult to put the blame on Yuji alone for this matter. If you have to find a reason, I personally think that our information intelligence is not good enough. Reiju said seriously. After a pause, she said with a heavy tone, we had never thought about it before. There is such a monster in a small marine branch in North Blue.
It is rumored that the nephew of Kizaru Admiral is much more powerful than the Marine Admiral of the same age. It is understandable that the Yongji society was defeated. It's just that our information is too backward.
We didn't find out that there is such a monster in the Marine branch of Mushroom Town. Hearing this, Judge was still furious. Just one person directly defeated 1,200 clone soldiers of our Vinsmoke family. And they are fully armed modern clone soldiers. How do you explain this?
Originally, I just wanted to ask Marine to restore the face of the Vinsmoke family as the king of North Blue.
The attack on the Marine branch was just a show to show off to the outside world. I never thought that in the end, the show of muscle failed, but instead made their Vinsmoke family lose face and lose face.
Judge began to regret. If he had known this, he should not have planned this revenge. If this were the case, he would not have been embarrassed for the second time and made a laughing stock of the people in the dark world of North Blue. Now it's all right. Showing off muscles has become a famous scene of being slapped in the face.
The Vinsmoke family also suffered heavy losses because of this. 1,200 clone soldiers, plus fully modernized weapons.
Even the youngest son of the family, Yuji, has become a prisoner.
Whenever he thought of this, Judge felt a pain in his heart. What kind of monster is that boy named Luen? How can he defeat 1,200 fully armed clone soldiers by himself?
Judge gritted his teeth and asked unwillingly.
A monster with the potential to be a king. 1 in a million. A natural king. Reiju's lips moved slightly. His tone could not hide his fear and horror, just like the young master Doflamingo of the Don Quixote family. This person holds the legendary Conqueror's Haki. He is the real monster of the sea. The most terrifying thing is, he is only 15 or 16 years old. There is no doubt that under the premise of the same age, even if you look at the entire sea, I am afraid that there are few people who can be stronger and more evil than this monster.
Hearing this, Judge's heart trembled slightly. The potential of a king.
Born to look at, the owner of Conqueror's Haki. These labels made Judge's shocked mood unable to calm down. Even Kizaru, one of the 3 Marine Admirals, is not the owner of Conqueror's Haki. Unexpectedly, his nephew would be better than his master and have the potential of a king. His talent and qualifications are obviously much more terrifying than Kizaru. Did they kill our 1,200 fully armed clones in seconds with Conqueror's Haki? Judge finally understood the reason why Yongzi and his men were defeated. Facing a monster that controls Conqueror's Haki, it is normal for them to face a disastrous defeat. FFLX. Can we just watch Yongzi being captured and imprisoned? Can we do anything? Judge couldn't stand it. Father, let me go, I will definitely bring Yangzi back safely. The eldest son of the Vinsmoke family, IG took the initiative to stand up and vowed. Let you go to die? Yangzi teamed up with Diamante, the highest cadre of the Don Quixote family, and they were killed in seconds by the monster with Conqueror's Haki after just one encounter. Do you really think you can deal with a monster of this level? Judge snorted coldly. Father, it's not that there is no solution. We can discuss it with the Don Quixote family first, and then, in the name of the two families, put pressure on the Marine side and try to resolve this matter in a peaceful way. Reiju suggested, just as she finished her words. The Den Den Mushi on the table in front of Judge suddenly rang. Balulu Balulu, Judge raised his eyebrows. If nothing unexpected happens, the call should be from the Don Quixote family. Connect the call. Sure enough, Doflamingo's voice came from the phone. What should we do next? Doflamingo's voice was aggrieved, angry, and a little suspicious. It seems that you should have known it. That Kizaru Admiral's nephew Luen is the owner of Conqueror's Haki. A natural king, a true monster of the sea. Judge heard a lot of information from Doflamingo's tone. Doflamingo was silent. It was because of this news that he was patient and suppressed his anger. The owner of Conqueror's Haki, just this alone is enough to show that the other party is not so easy to deal with. As a person with the potential of a king, Doflamingo knows very well how terrible this monster is. Especially, the other party is only 15 or 16 years old, but he already has such a strong strength. This makes Doflamingo have to be wary. A Marine Admiral's nephew can master Conqueror's Haki and has the potential of a king. Isn't this reasonable? In contrast, our top priority now is to discuss how to rescue the family members who have been arrested and imprisoned. Doflamingo got straight to the point and stated his intention. What do you think? Judge asked. It is not convenient for me to contact the Marine executives and negotiate with them. But your King Nuo Vinsmoke family is different. As the royal family of North Blue, it is one of the member states personally recognized by the world government. It is reasonable for you to negotiate with the Marine executives. My request is that Marine release Diamante alone. Marine can appropriately propose conditions that are not too excessive, this time, even if our Don Quixote family admits defeat. However, if there is another opportunity in the future, I hope that the monster named Luen can come to New World. At that time, I will personally take action to weigh his weight. I will definitely make him understand. Even though they are both owners of Conqueror's Haki and both monsters with the potential to be kings, there is still a huge gap in strength between them. Doflamingo's voice was cold, compared to the Vinsmoke family. In fact, their Don Quixote family suffered the most serious losses. After all, the largest slave trading market opened by their family in North Blue was completely destroyed because of an unknown mysterious swordsman and the intervention of Marine. The destruction of this slave base in North Blue will have a huge impact on the huge industrial chain of Don Quixote family. Okay, I know what you mean. I will contact the top management of Marine and start negotiations with them. Let's see what conditions the top management of Marine will put forward before they are willing to release our people. I will contact you again when there is good news. Judge hung up the call. Then, he used the phone to call the Naval Headquarters again. Pop, pop, the unique sound of the Den Den Mushi sounded. After a while, just when Judge thought the call was answered. Suddenly, the Den Den Mushi was hung up by the other party. Seeing this, Judge was slightly stunned. The whole person was stunned. He seemed to think of something, and his face became gloomy and angry. FK. Sengoku. You hung up on me, right? Judge never expected. Sengoku's revenge would come so quickly. Saint Laurent Small a 5A7 Supple Hobo Bag. Saint Laurent Small a 5A7 Supple Hobo. Chapter 49 Luen. Slack off at work and turn off my phone after get off work. First order on 8/10. Germa 66. As Judge's call was hung up by the other party, the atmosphere immediately became quiet. Dead silence. Complete silence. Whether it was the eldest son IG, the eldest daughter Reiju, or the second son Niji, none of them dared to anger their father under such circumstances. They still had some vision. At this moment, they could clearly see that their father Judge was on the verge of extreme rage, and he could easily get angry and explode. Isn't it just that I hung up on you a few times? So petty? Judge gritted his teeth and was indignant. He held the Den Den Mushi tightly in his hand, almost trapping it to death. Endure. I endure. Holding back the anger in his heart, Judge dialed the phone again. Unexpectedly, it was hung up again. Judge couldn't bear it anymore. He slammed his hand hard on the table in front of him, smashing the whole table to pieces, turning it into wood chips and debris flying everywhere. This made Reiju, IG and others uneasy. Okay. Is that how we play? You win. Judge, who needed help, had to continue to hold back his anger and continue to contact Naval Headquarters. Until he dialed out for the 9th time, and then he successfully contacted Naval Headquarters. Finally succeeded. No more hanging up on the other side. This made Judge feel relieved. At the same time, he secretly complained in his heart. The villain succeeded. If it weren't for that monster named Luen, you, Sengoku, should be the one who came to ask me for help now. Damn it. It's all the fault of that damn Luen. Why did this monster appear in North Blue? Judge cursed in his heart. After a while, after calming down a little, he said to Den Mushi, Sengoku? Isn't this the king of North Blue, Judge, the head of the Vinsmoke family? Why is he so lame after not seeing him for a few days? Before, I don't know which blind person kept hanging up my communication. Sengoku said in a gloomy tone. I won't say who that person is. I understand. Hearing Sengoku's sarcastic voice, Judge was furious, and his whole brain was about to explode. I didn't expect that Marine Marshal Sengoku would be so annoying. Okay. You don't have to disgust me so much. I admit that you won this time, but don't be complacent. If it wasn't for that little devil named Luen, this monster destroyed our action plan, then this time it should be your turn to beg me. Judge 047 said coldly, tell me, what price do I need to pay to let you release Yangzi from the Marine side? And the 1,200 clone soldiers, and the technological combat suits on them. Hearing this, Sengoku, who was far away in the office of the Marshal of the Naval Headquarters, laughed. He laughed loudly. He did not hide it. The judge could clearly hear the ridicule in Sengoku's laughter. It took a long time. Sengoku's laughter finally stopped. He said bluntly, send 10 copies of the latest weapons data developed by your Vinsmoke family to Dr. Vegapunk. How about it? This condition is not difficult, right? Judge was angry. Don't go too far. Do you want to get something for nothing? The weapons developed by our Vinsmoke family took several years or even more than 10 years. 11. You want to give your Marine a copy of our research results right away? Don't even think about it, not to mention just one Yangzi. Even if there are 10 Yangzi, he is not worth this price. Sengoku, if you don't want to negotiate, then there is no need to talk any further. Sengoku knew it naturally. The conditions he proposed were too much. Judge would never agree to it. He just wanted to piss off the other party. Who made this bastard hang up on him several times before? Shouldn't he discuss the other party? Therefore? Hearing Judge's angry voice at this moment, Sengoku felt so happy and comfortable. This negotiation is not only the idea of our Vinsmoke family. There is also Don Quixote family. You should also know the character of Doflamingo. If you piss him off, he won't follow too many rules with you. At that time, both of our families will be pissed off at the same time. Even with the huge size of your Marine, you will inevitably suffer losses. Heavy, and, from now on, you Marines will have a hard time moving forward in North Blue. Judge snorted coldly, trying to intimidate Sengoku. Doflamingo. He is indeed a troublesome guy. What troubled Sengoku was not Doflamingo's strength. It was simply because of Doflamingo's past identity, his past as a celestial dragon. Let's put it this way, I won't make it difficult for you. I want the latest set of technological combat uniforms from your Vinsmoke family, a total of 5,000 sets. As for the Don Quixote family, tell Doflamingo that if he is really sincere and wants to redeem those bastards under him, let him come to me himself. Sengoku said, 5,000 combat uniforms? Are you crazy? Do you really think that our Vinsmoke family can produce that kind of combat uniforms casually? Do you know how much energy and material resources we need to produce these 5,000 combat uniforms? Judge was furious. I reject your conditions. If you are still so insincere, then there is no need for us to negotiate. In response, Sengoku said, why? How dare a defeated General bark here? It is your Vinsmoke family that lost and needs our Marine. It is not our Marine that needs you. Why is your attitude and tone more like we need you? You don't seem to understand your status. After the words fell, Judge was silent. Although he was extremely angry inside, he could still hold it back for the time being. I need to have face-to-face negotiations with your Marine representative. Send one person from your Marine as a representative to the Germa kingdom. Let him represent your Marine and have face-to-face negotiations with our Vinsmoke family. Now, I don't want to talk too much with you through the Den Mushi. Besides, the Germa kingdom does not welcome the Marine Admiral. As for who to choose as a representative to come and negotiate with our Vinsmoke family, that's not a problem I need to consider, you decide. Judge's voice was low. Sengoku's eyelids jumped. It's not a trick, is it? Let's let Marine send one person as a representative to Germa kingdom, the base of your Vinsmoke family. Have face-to-face negotiations with your Vinsmoke family? Why does this sound? I always feel that your Vinsmoke family is plotting something bad. Moreover, they specifically forbid Marine Admiral to go to your Germa kingdom as a representative. For Sengoku's suspicion, Judge cut the Gordian knot directly. You can choose to give up. If you Marines are worried about tricks, then the negotiations will end here. Anyway, you don't have much sincerity. Remember, if you agree, then you Marines can only send one person as a representative of Marine to enter our Germa kingdom for face-to-face negotiations. In addition, I do not accept any negotiation by telephone. You Marines have so many strong people, are you still worried that our Vinsmoke family will cheat? I'm not afraid to tell you, I will contact the royal family of North Blue later. If you Marines are unwilling to participate in the negotiations, I will bring North Blue to negotiate. The Blue royal family puts pressure on the world government. At that time, I am afraid that you Marines will have to negotiate with us. Many of the royal families of North Blue are members of the world government. Once they unite, they still have a good influence. Therefore, Sengoku had to consider this issue carefully. After a while, the communication was hung up. Facing the solution given by the Vinsmoke family, Sengoku couldn't help but fall into deep thought. He was indeed worried that there would be fraud, however. Sending a person in charge as a representative of the Marine to the Germa kingdom, the base of the Vinsmoke family, for a face-to-face negotiation was not unacceptable. However, the person sent out represents the person in charge of Marine. He must have extremely strong strength to prevent the occurrence of rare accidents, and to prevent the Vinsmoke family from using him. All conspiracies and calculations are useless and a joke in the face of strong enough absolute strength. However, Judge also proposed to ban Marine Admiral from entering the kingdom of Germa. In this way, Sengoku does not have many choices. At this time, the first person that came to his mind was the monster boy in the North Blue Marine branch. North Blue. Mushroom Town. Marine branch. It was evening. A crescent moon was hanging on the horizon. Many residents of the ruined Mushroom Town port have been involved in the repair project. The resources needed to repair the Mushroom Town port must naturally be borne by Don Quixote and the Vinsmoke family. The two families detained a total of 2,000 people. Naturally, the two families would not turn a deaf ear to it and would definitely find ways to redeem them. At this time, they have to pay a painful price. Among them, compensation for the reconstruction of Mushroom Town is also one of the conditions. In the evening, the entire Marine branch of Mushroom Town still seemed very lively and noisy. At least hundreds of Marines stayed behind to guard the 2,000 pirates from the two families who were imprisoned. At this time, Diamante, who was killed by Luen in one hand, has also woken up. Knowing the fact that he was killed in one encounter by Luen, Diamante, who woke up, was very sincere and did not dare to publicize it loudly, and remained silent. It looks like he was beaten by Luen and doubted his life. The place where Diamante was imprisoned was adjacent to Yangzi, the youngest son of the Vinsmoke family. The two were communicating about their illnesses and telling their own misery. I don't know if the young master will be disappointed. I didn't complete the task assigned by the young master, and I really have no face to face the young master. Diamante felt deeply guilty. Okay. What kind of monster were we facing? You didn't expect us to win? To defeat that monster? Yangzi rolled his eyes. In comparison, I am more curious. What price will my father and his friends pay to get me out of jail? At this point, the only thing they can do is pray silently. Even Diamante and Yangzi didn't dare to make trouble in the jail, and the other pirates were naturally very quiet and honest. This saved Marine a lot of effort. It was late at night. The Marine branch was still brightly lit. Colonel Karen was still handling affairs in the Marine branch. This is. The Den Den Mushi on the corner of the table suddenly rang. Pulu Pulu. The unique call of the Den Den Mushi lingered in Karon's ears, and he quickly put down what he was doing, picked up the Den Den Mushi and connected it. This is the Marine branch in Mushroom Town. I am Colonel Karen. Karen spoke. It's me, Sengoku. Sengoku's voice came from the Den Den Mushi. Suddenly, Karen's face straightened and asked, Marshal Sengoku? What can I do for you? Sengoku. Where is Luen? Why did I keep calling his Den Den Mushi but no one answered? Faced with Sengoku's question, Karen thought for a while and replied weakly. Is it possible that Colonel Luen thinks that it is time to get off work and he will not answer any work-related communications? This made Sengoku silent. Off work time? After so many years as a Marine, this is the first time Sengoku has heard such a fresh and unconventional reason. For a moment, he was speechless. Can you contact Luen? I have something to tell him. Sengoku asked. This is quite difficult, I'm worried. It will anger Colonel Luen. Karen was uneasy and cautious. Forget it. Then I'll come to him tomorrow. Sengoku was helpless. He thought. Luen is a talented kid. Although he was led astray by Kizaru in the early stage, he was able to correct the other party's teaching later. But now, this matter is probably a long and arduous task. It is extremely difficult, after all. Even Kizaru never used off-duty as an excuse to refuse to carry out the tasks handed down by the Marine. At most, he was just lazy and slacking off during the tasks. But when it comes to Luen, good guy, he doesn't even pretend. He just gives up. He refuses to accept any tasks assigned by the Marine during off-duty time. He directly uses off-duty as an excuse. He refuses openly and honestly. In the end, Sengoku can only hang up the call helplessly, silently waiting for the arrival of tomorrow's work time. He is very troubled by Luen's lazy attitude. If other Marines dare to be so lazy, Sengoku will naturally not tolerate them. But the problem is that Luen is completely different. This is a 15 or 16-year-old Admiral seedling, a future Marine Admiral. Moreover, even if he is only 15 or 16 years old, his strength is enough to rival the real monsters of this sea. Such a naive good seedling, Sengoku really has no way to scold him. If he angered the other party and directly betrayed Marine, it would be a tragedy. Day and night alternated. Time passed, in a blink of an eye. Time came to the next day, early in the morning. The sun was shining and the sky was clear. The golden sunlight was shining and the warmth penetrated the heart. The remaining mist in the air was quickly evaporated. Mushroom Town was already very lively and noisy early in the morning. The attack by pirates yesterday seemed to have no effect on the residents of Mushroom Town. There were still so many people walking on the street, and most of them were talking about the topic of the pirate attack yesterday. In a moment, Luen's prestige in the hearts of the residents of Mushroom Town suddenly surpassed that of Colonel Karen, who had been in charge of Mushroom Town for more than 10 or 20 years. In just one night, Karon's prestige in Mushroom Town could not catch up with Luen even if he flattered him. Luen is now in the prime of his life in Mushroom Town. At this time, Luen, who came to the Marine branch to clock in on time, sat directly in the office chair, crossed his legs on the workbench, and put on an eye mask with a comfortable look, preparing to take a nap. All around, all the Marines were busy, each doing their own job. It was incompatible with Luen's laziness, but all the Marines did not dare to have any opinions. On the contrary, they all felt that Luen's laziness was a very reasonable thing. No way. Strong strength, outstanding ability, you can enjoy extraordinary privileges. This applies no matter where you are. Boohoo, as soon as he lay down, the Den Den Mushi on the desk rang immediately. This made Luen is very annoyed, although it is indeed working time now. But let me ask you, have you ever seen any worker who, after arriving on time, immediately devotes himself to work wholeheartedly? Don't people first go online, sneak a fish, then watch short videos? Read the news, and chat and play skirts. After slacking off for more than 10 or 20 minutes, they slowly start to get into work mode. So, Luen is very impatient with this telephone bug that rings on time. Chapter 50 Vice Admiral Nomination, Negotiation, Luen meets Vinsmoke, First Order on 9/10. Colonel Luen, the Den Den Mushi on your desk is ringing. Seeing that Luen had not chosen to answer the call, Colonel Karen, who was not far away, could not help but mention it weakly. Of course he knew who would come to see Luen. That was the Marine Supreme Commander Marshal Sengoku. Okay, I got it. Luen answered the Den Den Mushi with an impatient look on his face. It's me, Sengoku. Sengoku's voice came from the Den Den Mushi. Marshal Sengoku? What do you want to talk to me about? Luen was slightly surprised. Why would the Marine Supreme Commander come to him so early in the morning? For some reason, Luen felt something was wrong. Could it be that there was another mission? Is he going out to sea to perform a mission before he had rested for 2 days? Absolutely not. I haven't laid down enough. No matter what mission Marshal Sengoku has, he must firmly refuse to carry it out. Anyway, he just solved a group of pirates, so he can use this matter as an excuse to refuse. There is something that needs your participation. Sengoku got straight to the point and stated his purpose. The Vinsmoke family wants to redeem their family members. To this end, they threatened to bring the entire North Blue royal family to put pressure on our Marine. The Vinsmoke family's head judge first proposed that we need to send a person in charge from the Marine to the Germa kingdom as a representative of the Marine to negotiate with the Vinsmoke family face to face. In addition, he also specifically proposed to prohibit the Marine Admiral from entering the Germa kingdom. Therefore, after thinking about it, the only person I can think of as the most suitable person, it's you. Hearing this, Luen thought to himself, it's really another mission. But it's a pity that he has decided to refuse this mission. No matter what Sengoku says, it won't work. Marshal Sengoku, as you know, I just dealt with a group of pirates who came to attack the Marine branch in Mushroom Town. There were more than 2,000 pirates in total, including a large pirate with a bounty of over 100 million. Even for me, this battle has seriously damaged my vitality. I may need a year or two to recuperate before my body can recover as before. Fifelex. I really can't help you with the matter you raised. I hope you can find a second candidate. As for me, I won't accompany you. Now I'm in so much pain all over my body. I don't know if the Naval Headquarters will give a certain subsidy to a Marine soldier who bravely fights for the Marine. If not, forget it. I can only blame my own bad luck. I went through life and death for the Marine, but in the end I have to pay for treatment out of my own pocket. Luen said, complaining with sadness, opposite the Den Den Mushi. Sengoku. Hello, isn't it too much? If you keep acting, you might even believe it yourself. Do you really think I don't know that you killed more than 2,000 people in an instant with just Conquerors? And the pirate who you said had a bounty of hundreds of millions was killed by you with one hand in a single encounter. Even so, you dare not say that the battle you experienced has seriously damaged your vitality? You need a year or two to recover. You are blackmailing Marine, right? You want to blackmail Marine for some subsidies? This kid? I thought he was a malleable talent. As long as you change this kid's ideas and let him establish the correct belief in justice, he will definitely become the pillar of Marine in time. But now, this kid is a replica of Kizaru. No, that's not right. This guy is even more outrageous than Kizaru. This guy is obviously more important. Although Kizaru is usually lazy and slacking off, but in fact, as long as it is an order issued by Sengoku himself, Kizaru will work hard and execute it meticulously. However, when it comes to Luen, he is shirked with all kinds of excuses. The key is that Sengoku can't refute these excuses. This guy is a person who doesn't see the rabbit and doesn't release the eagle. If you don't give a little benefit, I'm afraid you can't expect Hien to work for Marine. Thinking of this, Sengoku was helpless. Let's do this. If you agree to carry out this mission, I can make a solemn promise to you. Within 2 years, you will be promoted to Vice Admiral of Naval Headquarters. Next, I will also solemnly propose to the senior management of Marine to nominate you as Vice Admiral of this department. In this way, if nothing unexpected happens, within 2 years, you will become the youngest Vice Admiral in the history of Naval Headquarters. A Vice Admiral who is only 18 years old. What do you think? After a pause, Sengoku introduced earnestly, you should know very well, as a newcomer to the Marine, you were awarded the rank of Colonel as an exception. If you don't have a major contribution, your position will not change much in a short time. So far, no one can be promoted as quickly as you. Originally, within a year, your position will not be promoted again. To be promoted to a Marine position, not only do you need enough merit, but you also need to accumulate it slowly over time. But, I can promise you that I will promote you to Vice Admiral within 2 years. If you complete this mission, I can directly give you the rank of Commodore. And I will transfer you to the Naval Headquarters. At that time, I can arrange you to work under your uncle Kizaru. Think about it. This opportunity is rare. As long as you complete the mission, you can be promoted to Commodore and get a nomination for Vice Admiral. As long as you are nominated as Vice Admiral, you will definitely be promoted to Marine Vice Admiral within 2 years. I can guarantee this to you in the name of the Marine Marshal. As Sengoku said, since Luen had just joined the Marine, he was granted the rank of Marine Colonel as an exception, which has broken many rules. Therefore, without major merits, Luen's position will not change much in the next year. Even if he completes more tasks, I am afraid it will be difficult to continue to be promoted. But with this promise from Sengoku, Luen can not only be promoted to Marine Commodore in a short time, but also be nominated as Vice Admiral. In the next 2 years, he will become Marine Vice Admiral. That is, the youngest Marine Vice Admiral in history, an 18-year-old Vice Admiral. Thinking of this, even Luen was a little tempted. It was just a small negotiation task. For Luen, it was almost the same as a public travel. Negotiating with the Vinsmoke family, such a thing did not require extra overtime. As for going to the Germa kingdom for negotiations, in Luen's opinion, it was no different from a public travel. After thinking about it, Luen decisively agreed, Marshal Sengoku. I'm really not for the promotion of Commodore or the nomination of Vice Admiral. The main thing is that I am a person with justice, and I will go through fire and water for the Marine. I have been determined to join the Marine since I was a child, to become an excellent Marine soldier, and to contribute my best to maintain the order and justice of this sea. Since Marshal Sengoku has a mission, I will do it without hesitation. Who else but me? As for my injuries, the damage caused by that battle, it's just a small problem. Of course, if Marshal Sengoku is willing to allocate subsidies, it would be even better. Sengoku was even more speechless. I have never seen such a thick skin. Still insisting on asking Marine for subsidies, all right. I won't say anything extra. This time, when we go to the Kingdom of Germa to negotiate with the Vinsmoke family, we need to prevent the Vinsmoke family from plotting something bad. If the Vinsmoke family has any plans, I will give you the power to act independently. At that time, you can take any action according to the situation you are facing. I will bear the consequences for you. In addition, in order to prevent the head of the Vinsmoke family from interfering, I have dispatched a total of 3 warships and 3,000 elite Marine soldiers in the nearby waters to obey your dispatch and orders. In addition, there are 8 Marine Colonels, 3 Marine Commodores, and 1 Marine Rear Admiral. This time, I let them temporarily obey your orders and commands. This shows that, in order to negotiate with the Vinsmoke family this time, Sengoku can be said to have taken great pains, and he was on high alert and was not careless at all. Otherwise, it would be impossible to directly mobilize 3 warships. A full 3,000 Marine elites, plus more than a dozen Marine senior officers. These people are naturally there to support Luen. Such a big deal? Luen was also a little surprised that Sengoku mobilized so many Marines and officers at one time. This indirectly shows how much importance Sengoku attaches to this matter. After a moment, the communication was hung up. Luen casually put the Den Mushi back on the table, without too much entanglement in this mission. It was just to go to the Germa kingdom to negotiate with the Vinsmoke family, so he didn't take it too seriously, and there was no psychological pressure at all. Even if the Vinsmoke family really had some plans, Luen would not be afraid. With the world's strongest physique and the strongest swordsmanship in ancient and modern times, now, it is no exaggeration to say that Luen's strength is the strongest in the sea. For a small Vinsmoke family, it naturally cannot pose any threat to Luen. So, that's it. Luen waited quietly in Mushroom Town for a day. Before the time was approaching dusk, an extremely large warship sailed from the port of Mushroom Town, carrying a full 1,000 Marine elites, all of whom were well trained. Compared with the Marines of the Marine branch of Mushroom Town, their comprehensive combat power was obviously much higher. The warship with the Marine Justice flag flying high was docked at the port of Mushroom Town. This group of Marines was led by a Marine Commodore, who led 2 Marine Colonels and 10,000 Marine elites. They arrived at Mushroom Town smoothly in response to the order of Marshal Sengoku. They were just the first group of Marines who accompanied Luen to the kingdom of Germa. Another day passed. Early morning, there was still some mist in the air. The scorching sun rose slowly, and the golden sunlight fell from the edge of the sky. Two large warships sailed in succession in the endless sea not far from Mushroom Town. Each warship carried no less than 1,000 Marines. Among them, 10. The warship in front was led by a Marine Rear Admiral, a Marine Commodore, 3 Marine Colonels, and 10 Marine Elite Soldiers.
The warship in the back was led by a Marine Commodore, also with 3 Marine Colonels and more than 1,000 Marine soldiers.
So far, the Marines mobilized by Sengoku have all gathered in Mushroom Town. Colonel Karen, the highest commander of Mushroom Town, had led the Marines to greet the first warship when it arrived at the port yesterday, respectfully and not daring to neglect it. After all, no matter which of these 3 warships, there is at least one Marine Commodore in charge. This is a Marine officer of a higher rank than Karen, so of course he dare not neglect him. As the saying goes, a higher rank can crush a person. Only Luen, who has impeccable talent and strength, and a Marine Admiral as his uncle, can be fearless when facing these Marine officers, and even a little indifferent. Colonel Luen, we are invited by Marshal Sengoku to temporarily obey your command and send you to the Germa kingdom to negotiate with the Vinsmoke family. During this period, we will obey Marshal Sengoku's orders and will not hesitate to any of your commands. All the senior Marine officers of the 3 warships gathered in the small Marine branch and stood in front of Luen, expressing that they would abide by the rules and temporarily obey Luen's dispatch and command this time. Although Luen was only a Marine colonel, they dared not disobey the order from Sengoku, the Marine Marshal. Moreover, the news that Luen had overthrown Don Quixote and the Vinsmoke family alone had already spread throughout North Blue. The Marine officers present had naturally heard about this. They admired Luen's strength and courage, so they would not jump out foolishly. They were dissatisfied with the fact that Luen, a Marine colonel, would hold the highest command in the next period of time. In the following period of time, Luen had a preliminary contact with this group of Marine officers, and he simply got to know them and knew their names. The only Marine Rear Admiral in the 3 warships, named Chris, was a middle-aged man with a height of 2 meters and 3 meters, suspected to be a swordsman. He carried a well-made samurai sword on his waist, and the workmanship of this samurai sword was obviously several levels better than that of other Marines. The other 3 Marine Commodores were named Maha, Delane, and Alf. They looked ordinary, nothing special, and Luen did not pay much attention to them. Luen simply remembered the names of the remaining 8 Marine Colonels and did not intend to learn more about them. For Luen, there was no need to waste this time to learn about these people who might not have any intersection in the future. Marine. Everyone just cooperated briefly. This time, he led 3 warships, more than 3,000 Marines, and rushed to the Germa kingdom with great fanfare to negotiate face-to-face with the Vinsmoke family. Apart from other things, the scene was already impressive enough. More than 3,000 Marines all need to obey Luen's orders and commands. This is a plan that Sengoku had already formulated before. In this regard, Luen did not have too many opinions. Perhaps for other Marines, the feeling of being able to hold power would be intoxicating, but for Luen, he didn't care about these at all. So, as long as there was no important problem, Luen would give the command to Chris, the only Marine Rear Admiral in the 3 warships. And him? He just needs to lie down. That's it. 3 warships gathered. Luen also boarded one of the warships, led 3 warships and more than 3,000 Marine elites, and rushed directly to the location of the Germa kingdom with great momentum. This time, no one from the Marine branch of Mushroom Town was brought with him. Marine. There are enough people. There is no need to mobilize the people of the Marine branch in Mushroom Town. It is more appropriate to let them stay in Mushroom Town and guard the more than 2,000 prisoners. In an instant, with all the Marines returning to the warships, after Luen's initial order was issued, the 3 large warships all set sail and raised anchor. Then, under the eyes of Karen, Modson and other Marines, the warships gradually sailed away from the port of Mushroom Town. Gradually going farther and farther, in the eyes, they slowly turned into tiny black dots. Hula, the calm sea surface was opened up with ripples, and the waves rolled and rippled. After a while, the 3 warships completely disappeared in this sea area. At the same time, the Vinsmoke family also learned the news at the first time. Marine has mobilized 3 warships with great fanfare, more than 3,000 elite Marine soldiers, plus more than a dozen Marine senior officers, and is heading straight for the Kingdom of Germa, and is about to start formal negotiations face-to-face. In addition, many forces in the dark world of North Blue also expressed close attention to the upcoming face-to-face negotiations between Marine and Vinsmoke family. Suddenly, the whole North Blue was undercurrent. Chapter 51. All parties are paying attention. Reiju appears. Judge's plan. 10 out of 10 first order required. Not only the dark world of North Blue is paying close attention to this negotiation that is likely to detonate the entire North Blue. Doflamingo, one of the 7 warlords of the sea in New World Dressrosa, has also sent people to keep a close eye on this far-reaching negotiation. Time flies. 2 days have passed. As the scorching sun rises slowly on the horizon, the warm sunlight falls on the sea, sparkling and shining. North Blue, the Kingdom of Germa. This is the base camp of the Vinsmoke family, the King of North Blue. In fact, the Kingdom of Germa is not a kingdom with fixed land, but a movable kingdom composed of huge warships. It is also the only member country recognized by the world government without a fixed territory. The Kingdom of Germa is headed by the royal family Vinsmoke family, and the head of the family judge is the King of the Kingdom of Germa. Under his command, many North Blue royal families have been gathered. In addition to clone soldiers, the Kingdom of Germa also has thousands of soldiers under his command. This force looks at the entire North Blue, even Marine has to give way. Usually, the Germa kingdom is scattered in more than a dozen places, consisting of a total of 10 ships. Once combined, it is the famous Germa kingdom. At this time, facing the negotiations for the upcoming arrival of Marine, the 10 ships of the Germa kingdom naturally gathered together. Floating in the blue sea, quietly waiting for the arrival of Marine. The endless sea. In the center, stands the Germa kingdom composed of 10 huge ships. Apart from this, there is no other island. On these 10 ships, you can see a variety of unique buildings and factories. Each ship seems to be an independent town, which can accommodate at least tens of thousands of people for daily residence. Once the 10 ships are combined, the area formed is like a large kingdom. A wide variety of buildings stand above the clouds. There are also towering castles. May 27th is colorful, which is overwhelming. This is the unique movable kingdom in the world. 10 miles away from the Kingdom of Germa, the sea is blue. Sea. 3 large warships are slowly approaching, with the flag of justice hanging high and fluttering in the wind. On the deck, there are Marine soldiers in neat Marine uniforms. The leader is a Marine Rear Admiral, 3 Marine Commodores, and 8 Marine Colonels. Such a camp is also quite powerful. Basically, the officers gathered here summarize more than 80% of the Marine commanders of the entire North Blue. It can be seen how much importance the Marine attaches to the negotiations with the Vinsmoke family this time. Looking from a distance, the Marine officers on the deck of the warship all saw a small black dot appear in the distant sea. As the distance got closer, the small black dot gradually became 10 huge ships. A huge movable kingdom on the sea composed of 10 huge ships was displayed in the eyes of all Marines. Seeing it for the first time, all the Marines were amazed and astonished. The technology of the Germa kingdom is indeed excellent, and even this kind of movable kingdom on the sea can be built. Like a wonder, it attracted the Marines' attention, with curious and amazed eyes. Colonel Luen, we are about to arrive at the Germa kingdom. Please get ready. Rear Admiral Chris came to Luen and reminded him. At this moment, Luen was lying on a chair with a comfortable look on his face, with his legs crossed on the fence of the warship, holding a glass in his hand, drinking a sweet and delicious drink, and tasting a delicious dessert. It seems that there is no psychological pressure at all. Even if negotiations with the Vinsmoke family are about to begin, Luen's heartstrings cannot be moved. In the past 2 days, Luen's laziness has opened the eyes of all the Marines on the 3 warships. From the initial discomfort, to the later completely adapted to Luen's laziness. Even Chris, the Rear Admiral, could not correct Luen's behavior, let alone reprimand or teach him. The other Marines naturally had nothing to say, although they could not understand why such a lazy Luen could have such a strong strength at the tender age of 15 or 16, and even strong enough to easily overthrow the strong men sent by Vinsmoke and Don Quixote family. All of this, the Marines could only attribute to the fact that Luen's talent was too terrifying. Are we there yet? Hearing Chris's reminder, Luen slowly opened his eyes, took off his sunglasses, squinted his eyes slightly, slowly stood up from his seat, and walked all the way to the edge of the deck fence. After his eyes gradually adapted to the brightness of the light, he began to look at the 10 huge ships that appeared in the sea ahead, forming 10 extremely large mobile sea-based main countries. It was like a masterpiece of art. Even Luen was a little surprised, and he was amazed. This Germa kingdom has a high level of technology. The Vinsmoke family is worthy of being a family with a scientific research background. Next to him, seeing Luen's stress-free appearance, Chris couldn't help but ask, Colonel Luen, aren't you nervous? Later, you may need to enter the Germa kingdom alone. Alone, facing the Vinsmoke family, the king of North Blue, and negotiate with them. If it were Chris himself, he would definitely not be able to do the same as Luen, who has maintained an extremely relaxed mentality until now, seemingly not nervous at all, but as calm and steady as ever. This mentality made Chris have to admire. Why are you nervous? Luen was puzzled. Chris couldn't speak for a moment. Did he want to emphasize? At this moment, what he needed to face was the Vinsmoke family, the king of North Blue, which had ruled the entire North Blue for more than 10 years. Wouldn't this help others and bring down his own prestige? Of course, Chris couldn't say such words, but there is no doubt. The Vinsmoke family, the king of North Blue, who had ruled North Blue for so many years, had a dignity, strength and power that had long been engraved in their bones, so that Marine had to express fear. Among them, Chris, who had been in charge of North Blue for many years, also had a more intuitive understanding and knowledge of the power of the Vinsmoke family. He had also dealt with the Vinsmoke family before, and it was because of certain contact that he could understand the power of the Vinsmoke family. Therefore, seeing Luen so calm in front of him, Chris didn't know whether he should admire the former's courage or sigh inwardly at the former's. The Vinsmoke family has nothing to know. The distance can be more clearly felt than the sense of oppression brought by the kingdom of Germa. The technology creation that seems to be far beyond the level of modern technology makes all Marine look like the world view. One is the only one of the mobile kingdoms created by technology in the world. It can be seen how advanced and excellent the technology of the Vinsmoke family is. K-Family Day. Here is the base of the Vinsmoke family, the Germa kingdom. It's really impressive. Luen looked at the exquisite workmanship of the Germa kingdom in front of him, as well as the many buildings, factories, etc. on it, as if he was on a public tour. From the outside, the Germa kingdom looked like a technological country from the future. Everywhere was a sense of technology ahead of the times. The 3 warships quietly stopped in this sea area, and all the Marines on the ship looked at the Germa kingdom. Soon, the Marines withdrew their amazed and admiring eyes, returned to their previous mentality, and their eyes became serious. They didn't forget. This time they came to the kingdom of Germa to negotiate on behalf of the Marines and the Vinsmoke family. In other words, if the negotiations fail, there is a high possibility of conflict and fierce fighting between the two sides. Therefore, all the Marines present are mentally prepared to fight at any time. It has to be said, even Luen has to admit that the psychological quality of this group of elite Marines is indeed strong enough, and is obviously several levels stronger than the Marines of the Mushroom Town Marine branch. Notify the Vinsmoke family that we are here. Let their people go out to greet them. Retracting his gaze, Luen turned to Rear Admiral Chris beside him and said,
Yes, even though he is a dignified Marine Rear Admiral, his official position is obviously 2 levels higher than Luen. But at this moment, Rear Admiral Chris obeyed Luen's orders and dared not disobey.
At the same time, as the 3 warships successfully arrived in the waters near the kingdom of Germa, this news was naturally conveyed to the ears of the Vinsmoke family and others at the first time. Father, there are 3 Marine warships. Among them, there is a Marine Rear Admiral, 3 Commodores, and 8 Marine Colonels. There is also an additional person in charge, the Colonel Luen, whose reputation has spread throughout the North Blue in recent days. Kizaru Admiral's nephew, a monster with Conqueror's Haki. At the same time, he is also the culprit that caused our Vinsmoke family's disastrous defeat. Reiju told the truth. Are they finally here? I've been waiting for them for a long time.
Judge's eyes flashed. Then, he said bluntly, Go, invite Kizaru Admiral's nephew Luen, a monster with the potential of a king and mastered Conqueror's Haki, to the meeting room of the Germa kingdom.
Yes. Reiju turned and left. She was wearing a pink coat today, with a graceful figure, a pair of straight and slender long legs stepping on pink high heels, and white stockings. Her facial features were charming and youthful, and she was full of charm. Watching Reiju's back as she left, Judge's eyes turned cold and his face was full of gloom. Luen? Did this monster come to the door in person? I didn't expect that old guy Sengoku would be willing to appoint this monster as the representative of Marine this time to negotiate with the Vinsmoke family. Don't old guy Sengoku worry that our Vinsmoke family will go back on their word? Attack on the spot? And leave Luen, a genius monster? The importance of this kind of monster genius to Marine is self-evident. This is a good seedling for the future admiral recognized by the outside world. For the Marine, which is currently in a period of transition, a monster seedling like Luen is definitely the heart and treasure of the entire Marine. It is possible to completely leave this monster and hold it hostage in the Germa kingdom. In this way, does it mean that we have the same bargaining chips as Marine? When he thought of this, Judge was eager to make a move. He admitted, at the beginning, he did want to negotiate with Marine peacefully. But now, knowing that the visitor was the monster named Luen, who was regarded as the genius of the future Marine Admiral, he had to have some other ideas. As for whether he would completely break up with Marine because of this incident, Judge said he was not worried at all. So what if they broke up? As long as the Vinsmoke family is in North Blue, as the royal family of North Blue, as the king of North Blue, then even if they break up with Marine, it will hardly affect the Vinsmoke family's dominance in North Blue. It's not like they angered the world government, they just broke up with Marine. There's nothing to be afraid of. With the size of the Vinsmoke family, they are qualified to break up with Marine. Sengoku, you took the initiative to deliver this to me. Originally, I really wanted to negotiate with you Marine and try to resolve this grudge and dispute in a peaceful way. But the problem is, since you are so kind and have brought such a huge bargaining chip to my door, I can only accept it with a smile. Judge's inner thoughts were infinitely magnified. He originally just wanted to resolve this matter in a peaceful way, but now, he has changed his mind. He wants to capture Luen, the evil monster alive. Then, use the other party as a bargaining chip and exchange hostages with Marine on an equal basis. In this way, the Vinsmoke family will not need to be subject to various restrictions and compensations from Marine. This is the best result. It is also the result that most satisfies Judge. The only question is, can he successfully capture this monster named Luen? Judge sneered at this question and was not worried at all. The entire Vinsmoke family, plus tens of thousands of fully modern armed clone soldiers, and being in the Germa kingdom. All these conditions and factors are currently all very advantageous to the Vinsmoke family. Let alone dealing with a mere young boy. Even if the Marine Admiral himself came, once he entered the Germa kingdom, Judge had enough confidence to forcefully shake the Admiral of Headquarters. What's more, at this time, we only need to deal with a teenager. No matter how strong this teenager is, and he is a monster with Conqueror's Haki, but 2.8 Judge does not think that the opponent's strength can be stronger than a Marine Admiral.
Once the opponent enters the Germa kingdom, he will definitely be at the mercy of the Vinsmoke family.
For this point, Judge is very sure. With his strength, plus the latest combat suit developed by the Vinsmoke family, plus these technological mechanisms within the Germa kingdom, etc. The advantage is mine. With so many advantages, if I still can't take down the monster boy named Luen, then I have lived in vain all these years. Judge thought confidently. On the other side, Reiju, the eldest daughter of the Vinsmoke family, who received the judge's order, led a group of fully armed clone soldiers to the port of the Germa kingdom. She personally greeted Luen, the representative of Marine Jew. Reiju, wearing a pink coat, showed the charm of a mature woman, with a pair of long straight legs, wearing white stockings and pink high heels, looking forward to the position headed by the 3 warships in front. She saw the boy who was only 15 or 16 years old. So young, is this the monster with conquerors? Reiju was secretly shocked. Then, she quickly calmed down and issued a grand invitation to Luen. Colonel Luen, please enter the Germa kingdom alone, and other people are not allowed to enter. Okay. As the warship approached, Luen took a step out. Leaving the warship, successfully landed in the Germa kingdom. Before entering the Germa kingdom, Luen gave the command of the outside to Rear Admiral Chris. Moreover, he specifically told him not to act rashly even if an accident happened later. Everything can be handled by him alone. Then, Luen, led by Reiju, stepped into the inner area of the Germa kingdom alone. Chapter 52. The Conqueror's shocking envelops the Germa kingdom, First Order on 11/10. At the same time, as Luen followed Reiju into the Germa kingdom, the spies from various forces in the surrounding waters and those hiding in the distant seas from the North Blue Dark World immediately began to communicate and conveyed the observed information to the top leaders of each force at all times. The two sides have met. At present, there is no conflict between the two sides. Marine has sent a teenager who is only 15 or 16 years old as the representative of Marine this time, responsible for entering the Germa kingdom and negotiating with the Vinsmoke family. If I am not mistaken, the teenager sent out as the representative of Marine. He is most likely the monster Luen who has been famous in North Blue in recent days, Kizaru Admiral's nephew, a monster with conquerors. Marine sent such a monster out, obviously attaching great importance to this negotiation. When Luen followed Reiju and the two officially left the outer area of the Germa kingdom, thousands of fully armed clone soldiers immediately walked out of the Germa kingdom. The clone soldiers wearing the new combat uniform developed by the Vinsmoke family are in a confrontation with the Marine in front of them. The densely packed and fully armed clone soldiers are coming fiercely. This scene caused more than 3,000 Marines led by Rear Admiral Chris to feel a sense of oppression. Rear Admiral, what are the Vinsmoke family going to do? The 3 Commodores looked at Chris and asked nervously. The number of this group of clone soldiers is probably no less than 10,000, and may even be close to 20,000. A full 20,000 fully armed clone soldiers are ready to go, which inevitably makes the Marine feel uneasy and uneasy. In contrast, the Marine side only dispatched 3,000 people. The difference in the number is nearly 7 or 8 times. Moreover, clone soldiers do not feel pain, fear, or death. If a conflict really breaks out, one clone soldier can at least exchange the lives of 3 or 5 Marines. Don't be nervous. Maybe this is just a measure taken by the Vinsmoke family to guard against us. They are worried that we will rush into the Germa kingdom, so they sent this group of clones to confront us. As long as we don't act rashly, these clones will probably not attack us. Chris analyzed calmly. The negotiations have not yet begun, and it is obviously not the time for the two sides to break out. Therefore, the reason why this group of clones appeared here is obviously to deter these Marines. In this way, Colonel Luen enters the Germa kingdom alone with 29 people, once he encounters an attack from the Vinsmoke family inside. We who are outside are afraid that we can't help Colonel Luen at all. Chris's heart sank. If a conflict really breaks out, he has no confidence in breaking through the siege of 20,000 clones. Under Chris's explanation, the Marines, who were originally extremely tense, slightly relieved their extremely stressful mood. On the other side, following Reiju's footsteps into the Germa kingdom, Luen saw many highly technological artificial products along the way. Far beyond the technological level of this era, only the laboratory of Dr. Vegapunk may be better than these technological products in the Germa kingdom. Along the way, the overall structure of the Germa kingdom was roughly analyzed by Luen's brain. There are many types of building structures here. There are machinery factories, laboratories, training grounds, equipment rooms. The entire Germa kingdom is more like a super large arsenal. There are all kinds of weapons stored here. Colonel Luen, please. Arriving in front of the heavy steel door of the conference room, Reiju slowly turned around and looked at Luen with a charming and delicate face. She bent slightly, and her graceful figure was outlined, which made people imagine. Luen took a step forward. He jumped directly over Reiju beside him, and under the latter's slightly surprised eyes, he walked into the conference room in front of him crisply. Watching Luen's back as he walked into the conference room, Reiju finally came back to her senses, her beautiful eyes flashing with a gleam of brilliance. Then, she stepped out with her long legs, stepped on pink high heels, and walked into the conference room. As soon as she arrived at the conference room, Luen came face to face with the burly middle-aged man who was more than 2 meters tall and sitting in the main seat of the conference room. He had long golden hair hanging down, wore a mask similar to a cow's face, and was wearing a golden cloak.
If I guessed correctly, this person was the head of the Vinsmoke family, Vinsmoke Judge.
The king of the Germa kingdom. In addition to Vinsmoke Judge, there were 2 young men with different hair colors sitting here. The one wearing red clothes and red hair is the eldest son of the Vinsmoke family, Vinsmoke IG. The one wearing blue clothes and blue hair is the second son, Vinsmoke Niji. Finally, it is the eldest daughter of the Vinsmoke family, Reiju, who stepped out of the door of the conference room. Except for the third son of the Vinsmoke family who ran away when he was young, all the members of the family gathered together to welcome Luen, the representative of Marine. A pair of eyes full of hostility, solemnity, and fear were fixed on Luen, who had just walked into the conference room. The momentum and pressure that came over him would probably make ordinary people collapse on the ground. But Luen seemed to be walking in his own backyard, ignoring it and not caring about the sweeping momentum. Then, he pulled out a chair and sat down directly. Crossed his legs. On the desk. As if he was back home, Luen spoke calmly. So, should we get straight to the point? Or should we fight first? Solve it as soon as possible and clock out early. This is his main goal, to carry it through to the end. He doesn't want to waste too much time with the Vinsmoke family. At this time, faced with Luen's straightforward showdown, Judge and others were stunned. Why doesn't this kid play by the rules? Shouldn't they negotiate first? And then, if they can't reach an agreement, have a big quarrel. Then, fight? But as soon as this kid walked in, he went straight to the point, making it difficult for Judge to say what he had been brewing for a long time, and he could only remain silent. Judge originally planned to find a reason to fight Luen. After capturing Luen alive, he would use him as a bargaining chip to exchange hostages with Marine. Unexpectedly, Luen's frank behavior made Judge not know how to start for a while. Exhaling heavily, Judge suppressed the many thoughts in his head. He stared at Luen and asked, "It seems that you have known for a long time that as you step into the Germa kingdom, we will definitely take a series of actions against you?" Luen didn't care. Of course you won't choose to miss the chips that are delivered to your door. Any normal person can think of this problem. Judge raised his eyebrows. Since you already know, why do you still want to enter the Germa kingdom alone? Aren't you afraid? Or, from the beginning, you have never taken our Vinsmoke family seriously? Aside, IG and Yongji are a little impatient. Reiju has no expression on his face. The atmosphere becomes a little subtle. It seems that the whole conference room will become a battlefield in the next second. The oppressive atmosphere is accompanied by a murderous atmosphere. Then why do you think I dare to break into the Germa kingdom alone? Luen crossed his legs and asked back, "Young man, don't be too arrogant." Judge snorted coldly. "If you are not angry, you are still a young man." Luen thought of a certain Wachang in his mind. Humph. It seems that there is no need to continue the negotiation between us. I am not afraid to tell you, just as you said just now. Compared with negotiating with you Marine, paying a certain price to redeem those people you arrested and detained. I prefer to catch you, use you as a bargaining chip in the hands of our Vinsmoke family, and then put pressure on Marine. Then, without spending a single soldier, we can redeem our family members. Judge did not hide his purpose, after the words fell. IG and Niji stood up in unison, standing on the left and right sides of Luen, only 4 or 5 meters apart, which was an excellent attacking position. Father. For some reason, Reiju had a bad feeling. It was an intuition. She always felt that if she really took action against this young monster, something terrible would happen, causing a disaster for Germa. FFLX. Is this the choice of your Vinsmoke family? Then I understand. Luen laughed. Negotiation? How tiring it is. Not only does it waste your breath, but it also wastes too much time, which seriously interferes with your early clocking out. If the talks fail, the Vinsmoke family takes the initiative to attack, and the situation will be different immediately. This kind of thing is exactly what Luen is best at solving. Not only is it simple, but it also saves time. As for what kind of consequences will the Vinsmoke family bring after the sudden rise? Luen has never considered this at all. I don't know if he looks down on the Vinsmoke family. With the world's strongest physique plus the strongest swordsmanship in ancient and modern times, let alone the Vinsmoke family, even if there is another 4 Emperors pirate group, they can't really threaten Luen.
It is worthy of being a genius monster with the potential of a king and mastering Conqueror's Haki. Marine regards him as a good seedling for the next generation of Marine Admiral. Even in the face of such a severe situation, he can still remain calm. This mentality alone makes people have to look up to him. What a pity. You are in the kingdom of Germa, in the base camp of our Vinsmoke family. Even if you are really a Marine Admiral, it is destined that you can't fly today. If I am not fully prepared, how can I invite you to enter the kingdom of Germa alone? Seeing Luen's calm appearance without fear, Judge was amazed. Immediately, he clapped his hands. In an instant. Rumble. A burst of footsteps sounded like thunder, deafening. Then, rows of fully armed clone soldiers walked into the conference room in neat rows. In a short time, this group of clone soldiers quickly surrounded Luen. Don't be nervous, this is just a VV appetizer specially prepared for you. Judge looked at Luen. At this point, there is nothing to worry about.
IG and Niji activated their combat uniforms, ready to launch a surprise attack on Luen at any time. Even Reiju, even though she had an ominous premonition in her heart, could not disobey the orders of her father Judge. She was also ready to attack Luen at any time. Under Judge's order, the group of clone soldiers who surrounded Luen launched a fierce attack with their own skills. The overwhelming attack came. Luen had a blank expression and remained unmoved throughout the whole process.
Then, a dark red light suddenly flashed in his eyes. In an instant, the momentum brewing in his body suddenly burst out from his body. Boom! The earth-shaking momentum spread all over the sky. In a short period of time, this momentum seemed to turn into a surging wave. Overturning the sea, the momentum was terrifying. The momentum rushed to the area outside the conference room. There was no doubt that this was the Conqueror's Haki from Luen. He didn't even need to do it himself to deal with this group of miscellaneous soldiers. The overwhelming conquerors spread in all directions, covering one clone soldier after another, crushing the consciousness and spirit of these clone soldiers. Plop, plop. It was visible to the naked eye that one clone soldier after another fell down. Once they fell, a large group of them fell directly.
They fell down like a tidal wave. In groups, they fell to the ground, unconscious, and completely lying dead. In the blink of an eye, the clone soldiers who had surrounded Luen were completely wiped out. Not a single one was left. Facing the amazing conquerors that Luen had exploded, all the clone soldiers were knocked to the ground without exception. The huge conference room was full of clone soldiers lying on the ground. In addition, the Conqueror's Haki from Luen's body was not only aimed at the group of clone soldiers in the conference room, as well as the area outside the conference room, it almost covered 1/3 of the area of the Germa kingdom. They were all within the coverage of Luen's amazing Conqueror's Haki. An invisible aura, in a circular shape, spread out to a diameter of tens of thousands of meters with Luen's body as the center point. The Conqueror's coverage reached an astonishing range of more than 10 kilometers in diameter. It is conceivable, at this moment, how many staff members of the Germa kingdom suddenly fell to the ground during their work, foaming at the mouth, rolling their eyes, and completely fainted. Plop, plop. Similar phenomena occurred in other areas of the Germa kingdom. In short, in just less than a few breaths, a preliminary conservative estimate is that at least 100,000 staff members have fallen in the Germa kingdom. All of them were stunned by Luen's amazing conquerors on the spot. Among them, a few lucky and strong-willed personnel did not fall under the pressure of this overwhelming conquerors. But facing the staff members who fell to the ground around them, they all showed extremely terrified and shocked expressions. This is Conqueror's Haki. As the core cadres of the Germa kingdom, these people who were lucky enough to avoid being stunned by conquerors naturally still have a certain vision. Therefore, they judged the truth at the first time. Then, after preliminary statistics, they came to an extremely shocking conclusion. In the entire Germa kingdom, about 30,000 people have fallen under the impact of this Conqueror's Haki, unconscious and unconscious. Almost more than half of the people in the Germa kingdom were stunned by this unknown conquerors. As a result, some factory facilities in the Germa kingdom were forced to stop without anyone to operate. It seems that a great being has come to the Germa kingdom. All the survivors formed a consensus in their minds. A monster with Conqueror's Haki has come to their Germa kingdom. Moreover, the other party seems to be confronting and fighting with the Vinsmoke family. Otherwise, it is impossible to allow this conquerors to stun nearly half of the population of the Germa kingdom. Is it the monster boy who came to negotiate with the Vinsmoke family on behalf of Marine? Everyone was trembling. Conference room. Only Judge, Reiju, IG, and Niji remained conscious in the entire conference room. All other clone soldiers were wiped out without exception. As expected of a monster with Conqueror's Haki. Using human wave tactics to deal with you is just a naive and ridiculous idea. Judge looked at Luen. He was obviously fully prepared for what was happening. Just as he said at the beginning, using clone soldiers to besiege Luen was just an appetizer. The main event is now officially starting. Chapter 53 Sengoku is furious, Admiral Kizaru goes out in person. Please customize. Germa Kingdom. Outer waters. 3 large warships are quietly waiting here. Led by Chris and his 3 Marine Commodores, more than 3,000 elite Marine soldiers are confronting the 20,000 fully armed clone soldiers in front of them. Originally, neither side had any intention of fighting. As Chris analyzed, the Vinsmoke family was indeed worried that Marine would act rashly, so they specially sent 20,000 clone soldiers, fully armed with modern weapons, to confront Marine in front of the gate of the Germa Kingdom. It was to guard against Marine. In this regard, Chris naturally could not lead Marine to fight against this group of clone soldiers who had no sense of pain, fear of death, and no fear. Although these clone soldiers have flesh and blood, they are actually just robots without emotions. Taking Marine's life to exchange with these clone soldiers on a one-to-one basis would make Chris feel a loss. What's more, if they really fight, Marine may not be able to exchange the opponent's clone soldiers at a ratio of 10 to 10. The greater possibility is that one clone soldier will take the lives of 5 Marines. In other words, they have more than 3,000 elite Marines in total, and at most they can only fight 600 fully armed clone soldiers. Such a huge gap in strength made Chris dare not make any overstepping actions. Until boom, a shocking momentum burst out from the Germa kingdom and soared into the sky. Even though the momentum was invisible and intangible, Chris, who was not far away, could still feel the horror of this momentum. The soaring momentum was about to tear the sky apart. Even the entire Germa kingdom seemed to have been completely enveloped. Even the Sea Kings hidden under the sea were vaguely affected by this terrifying momentum that soared into the sky, and were fleeing in panic under the deep sea. This momentum was too shocking. Even if he was not affected by this momentum and was not in the coverage area of this momentum, Chris's body still trembled uncontrollably. The fear, terror, and uneasiness that came from the heart and soul. $151. Facing a higher level of life species. The fear that the body produced autonomously penetrated the heart and could not be restrained. XX. Chris's throat was dry, he looked up at the sky, and was speechless for a moment. His whole body was trembling slightly, and he could not control it at all. Even if the amazing momentum was hundreds or thousands of meters away, the slight aftermath of the momentum was enough to make Chris's heart tremble and his hair stand on end. Even Chris, the Marine Rear Admiral, had this stress response. It is conceivable. At this moment, the 3 Commodores, 8 Colonels, and more than 3,000 Marine elites behind Chris were naturally no exception. They all had different degrees of fear and were frightened to different degrees. Chris, Rear Admiral, what on earth is this? The 3 Commodores looked up at the sky, looking at the sky above the kingdom of Germa with horror, feeling the amazing momentum 1,000 meters away. It was too terrible. They simply couldn't imagine how terrible their performance would be if they were in the range of this momentum at close range. Even though they were thousands of meters away, they were all shocked by this momentum and got goosebumps all over their bodies. If I'm not mistaken, this should be the legendary Conqueror's Haki. The Conqueror's Haki from Colonel Luen. Chris took a deep breath, his tone full of solemn analysis. Conqueror's Haki? The Commodore was at least a mid to high level Marine officer, and was already able to master the Marine 6 styles proficiently, and was exposed to the practice of observation Haki and armament Haki. So, of course, they had heard of the legendary Conqueror's Haki. Although they didn't know much about it, they were not completely clueless. Of the other 8 Marine colonels, about half had heard of Haki, while the other half were completely confused and bewildered. Conqueror's Haki is said to be 1 in a million, and only the true king of the sea can possess it. Anyone who masters Conqueror's Haki will become the top monster in the sea in the future. Colonel Luen is one of them. Seeing that these Marine colonels were only half understood, Chris gave a simple explanation. Hearing this, the 8 Marine colonels were shocked and their eyes widened. Is this why Marshal Sengoku gave the command of this operation to Colonel Luen, the owner of Conqueror's Haki, the real monster of the sea? They thought. Rear Admiral, why did Colonel Luen suddenly burst out Conqueror's Haki? Could it be that he encountered danger inside? Encountered an ambush attack by the Vinsmoke family? That's why he used Conqueror's Haki? Doesn't this mean this negotiation was originally a trap set by the Vinsmoke family, in order to lure you into the trap, an ambush for Colonel Luen? The 3 Commodores woke up, their faces full of worry and anxiety. Chris's face changed slightly after being reminded, and he also thought of this problem. Could it be that the Vinsmoke family really wants to join us? Marine torn apart?
How dare you set a trap for Colonel Luen? How dare you?
This is a good candidate for the future Marine Admiral, appointed by Marshal Sengoku. Chris's face was full of shock and anger. He stared at the 20,000 fully armed clone soldiers in front of him, and felt powerless for a moment. Even if he was angry, he dared not act rashly, leading 3 elite Marines to fight against each other. Now, he finally understood. Why did the Vinsmoke family deliberately mobilize 20,000 fully armed clone soldiers to confront their Marines? Obviously, the other party had a conspiracy to prevent their Marines from intervening to help Luen. Damn it. Chris cursed angrily. The deterrent power brought to him by 20,000 fully armed clone soldiers was too strong. If the difference in numbers was not too great, Chris would have led the Marines to launch an attack to reinforce Luen in the Germa kingdom. The group of fully armed clone soldiers in front of him were all robots without self-emotions. They would not take the initiative to attack, but Chris was sure that as long as their Marines dared to take half a step beyond, they would immediately face the most violent attack from these clone soldiers. Colonel Luen is in a bad situation now. The Vinsmoke family is clearly well prepared. They set an ambush specifically for Colonel Luen. We must find a way to break the situation. We can't let Colonel Luen face the ambush of the Vinsmoke family alone. Chris gritted his teeth, his mind spinning wildly. He was thinking of a way to break the situation, but no matter how he thought, he couldn't think of 10 solutions to the crisis. He couldn't think of it no matter how hard he tried. Rear Admiral, let's notify the Marshal. With only the number of people we have now, it's probably difficult to break out of the encirclement of these 20,000 clone soldiers. One Commodore after another suggested, it's not that they are afraid of death. It's just, at present, the gap between their 3,000 Marines and the 20,000 fully armed clone soldiers on the opposite side is indeed too big. It's not the point of hitting a rock with an egg for the time being. Besides, Rear Admiral doesn't need to worry too much. Colonel Luen is not weak. Even if the Vinsmoke family is well prepared and sets an ambush specifically for Colonel Luen. Presumably, it will be difficult for them to defeat Colonel Luen in a short time. Don't forget, Colonel Luen is a strong man with Conquerors, the real monster of the sea. So, we must not lose our composure. Believe in Colonel Luen. After the three Commodores calmed down, they started a series of analysis. You were right. Chris also recalled what Luen had specifically told him before entering the Germa kingdom. He gradually calmed down. Could it be that Colonel Luen had already anticipated this? He had long known that the Vinsmoke family would not negotiate with our Marine obediently? FFLX. Just now, before entering the Germa kingdom alone, Colonel Luen specifically reminded me not to act rashly in any event. Chris suddenly realized. At the same time, he admired and respected Luen even more. Even though he knew that the Vinsmoke family had ill intentions, he still dared to break into the Germa kingdom alone. What is a strong man? This is it. Even though he knew that the other party had a conspiracy, he was confident that his strength could crush all conspiracies and tricks. No wonder Colonel Luen has awakened and mastered Conqueror's Haki at such a young age. Every owner of Conqueror's Haki is basically determined, extremely confident in his own strength, and never afraid of any challenge. Chris can also see the above points from Luen. He has no doubt about this. In time, Colonel Luen will definitely become the strongest in this sea. However, even if Colonel Luen is well prepared, we can't just sit there and wait for death just in case. Chris quickly took out the Den Mushi and prepared to dial the communication at Naval Headquarters. Even though Luen is very strong, facing the ambush set up by the Vinsmoke family, the King of North Blue, he is also very worried about Luen's personal safety.
How strong is the Vinsmoke family that has ruled North Blue for so many years?
Chris knows this very well. The ambush carefully prepared by the Vinsmoke family, and it is specifically aimed at Luen alone, is obviously not so easy to deal with. We must ask for help. It's urgent. Chris dialed the communication of the Marine Marshal's office. At the same time, as the shocking momentum that broke out from the Germa kingdom soared into the sky, even those spies from the Dark World hiding in this sea area more than 10 kilometers away, they can also feel the terrifying deterrence of this momentum.
What a shocking aura. The spies from various forces in the Dark World expressed their inner shock and fear.
As spies sent by various forces in the Dark World, these people's experience is not weak. However, the aura they felt was too shocking. Even though they were more than 10 kilometers away, they were still secretly frightened, with their hair standing on end and their scalps tingling.
Is this the legendary Conqueror's Haki? Someone speculated.
Scenery. Conquerors? Someone exploded Conquerors? Wasn't it the monster from Marine? Didn't he enter the Germa kingdom and negotiate on behalf of Marine and the Vinsmoke family? Why did he suddenly explode such an amazing Conqueror's Haki? Could it be that the two sides completely broke down in the talks? It is very likely. The Vinsmoke family and Marine, are these two sides going to go to war? Even Conqueror's Haki exploded. It is basically certain that the two sides should not be able to reach an agreement, or simply failed to reach an agreement and have already fought. There was a lot of discussion. These people immediately told this shocking speculation to the ears of the high-level forces behind them. Marine and Vinsmoke family, this is the rhythm of a full-scale war. And the monster who erupted Conqueror's Haki, although he is indeed very powerful, however, he is in the Germa kingdom, which is the base camp of the Vinsmoke family. Even if he is very strong, I am afraid that he will be taken down by the Vinsmoke family. Things are getting worse and worse, and I don't know how Marine will respond to this matter. In the next period of time, North Blue will be in complete chaos. Naval Headquarters Marineford. Marshal's office. Pop, pop, the unique sound of the Den Mushi sounded from the corner of the table. Sengoku's originally bent body immediately straightened up, and he quickly took the phone and answered it. As early as when Luen set sail, his subordinates sent news. Let Sengoku know. Luen personally led 3 warships, more than 3,000 elite marine soldiers, a rear admiral, 3 commodores, and 8 colonels, all rushed to the Germa kingdom, the base of the Vinsmoke family. So, during this period of time, Sengoku has been waiting for Luen's communication. The communication was connected. Sengoku immediately asked, "What's the situation?" Luen entered the Germa kingdom alone. What stage has the negotiation progressed to now? The questions in succession revealed Sengoku's inner urgency at the moment. However, the response from Chris on the other side of the Den Mushi instantly ignited Sengoku's anger. Marshal Sengoku, the Vinsmoke family tore up the agreement. From the beginning, they had no intention of negotiating with our Marine. The reason they did this was purely to set an ambush, to ambush Colonel Luen. Now, Colonel Luen has entered the Germa kingdom alone and has been ambushed by the Vinsmoke family, isolated and helpless. We are also surrounded by 20,000 fully armed clone soldiers outside the Germa kingdom. Just now, Colonel Luen exploded an amazing Conqueror's Haki in the Germa kingdom. Even if I am not in the range of this momentum, I can still feel the horror of that momentum. Colonel Luen is probably already in the Germa kingdom of Germa, fighting with members of the Ace Mach family. The situation is very urgent. Chris' voice was full of urgency, anxiety, and worry. Damn it. Sengoku was furious. How dare the Vinsmoke family do this? The veins on his forehead bulged, and he was furious. He wanted to rush to North Blue immediately and teach the Vinsmoke family a lesson. When he thought of Luen fighting alone, isolated and helpless, and being besieged by the Vinsmoke family, Sengoku was impatient and anxious. Although Luen's strength is indeed very strong, as the owner of Conqueror's Haki, however, the Vinsmoke family, as the king of North Blue, is obviously not a pushover. The Vinsmoke family is playing with fire. Do you really think Marine dare not make a big move against them? Sengoku's voice was low and suppressed, after a pause. He said to comfort Chris, who was imminent, "Don't worry. I will send Kizaru to North Blue in person. It will take less than half an hour to arrive at the scene. Kizaru will take full responsibility for this matter. With Luen's strength, it should not be a problem for him to hold out for half an hour under the siege of the Vinsmoke family. When Kizaru arrives, it will be the time to completely settle accounts with the Vinsmoke family." Sengoku is obviously serious. Directly dispatch Admiral of Headquarters Kizaru. A Logia sparkling fruit ability user. Only Kizaru can go to North Blue for reinforcement in the shortest time. Then, Sengoku sent a message to Kizaru. "Your nephew was ambushed by the Vinsmoke family. Now the situation is very dangerous and imminent. I need you to leave for North Blue immediately to reinforce your nephew and Lai." Vinsmoke family? They are so brave. Hearing the news from Sengoku, Kizaru's tone lost its usual laziness and became sharp and fierce. Instantly, Kizaru's body turned into a golden light and disappeared in the Naval Headquarters in an instant. It was like a meteor heading straight for North Blue. Chapter 5400 times gravity? Flesh and blood resist. Monster. Please customize. North Blue. Germa Kingdom. Meeting room. As the earth-shaking Conqueror's Haki enveloped nearly half of the Germa Kingdom, more than half of the Vinsmoke family members were almost wiped out. At this point, the atmosphere in the meeting room became more depressing and severe. The situation was tense. A murderous aura arose spontaneously. Led by Judge, the head of the Vinsmoke family, the eldest daughter Reiju, the eldest son Ig, and the youngest son Niji, a total of 4 family members, had completely surrounded Luen from the 4 directions of east, west, south, and north. On the ground, fully armed clone soldiers were unconscious and unconscious. They were all stunned and killed instantly by Luen's conquerors. Judge was not surprised by this result. The reason why he wanted to adopt the human wave tactic was simply to test Luen's confidence. As expected, the young man in front of him, although young, is indeed a monster with the potential to be a king and mastered Conqueror's Haki, just as the outside world has said. But even so, G has no intention of retreating. Mastering Conqueror's Haki is nothing special. In the new world, there are many people who master Conqueror's Haki. The Vinsmoke family has been able to rule North Blue for decades, so they are naturally not afraid of a monster who masters conquerors. The human wave tactic is basically useless against this kind of monster that masters conquerors. I am too naive. But then, how will you deal with the siege of our entire Vinsmoke family? How can you break the situation with just you alone? And don't forget that you are now in the kingdom of Germa. This is the base camp of our Vinsmoke family. Judge stared at Luen quietly. Reiju, Ig, and Niji were watching closely, not daring to be careless. The 3 of them were ready to start their combat suits at any time. Reiju had a mutated bloodline factor in her body, which not only made her physique as strong as Superman, but also gave her an unsolvable anti-toxin ability, and her body could absorb toxins freely and release them. With such a physique, she, combined with the combat suit she carefully developed, could be regarded as a strong person with considerable strength even in the new world. Ig and Niji might be slightly inferior, but a set of combat suits would infinitely raise their strength. Of course, the strongest one was the head of the family, Judge. As a world-class top scientist, he had been a colleague of Dr. Vegapunk for a period of time. Judge's scientific research ability was not inferior to Vegapunk in some aspects. Over the years, Judge had developed countless scientific research combat suits for combat, and combined with his own outstanding strength, he should not be underestimated. Start the gravity device. 513 Judge looked at Niji. Inside the Germa kingdom, even if it is just a small conference room, there are many technological products buried inside. The gravity device is one of them. The gravity inside the conference room can be adjusted freely. The highest gravity can even reach a full 100 times. It makes the human body extremely heavy, as if carrying a towering mountain. In order to prevent the gravity device from accidentally hurting its own people, Judge has developed a series of combat uniforms. The combat uniforms are equipped with anti-gravity devices. In other words, once the gravity device in the conference room is turned on, then, you only need to wear the combat uniform developed by Judge and activate the anti-gravity device, which can directly offset the weight pressure brought by the gravity device. In this way, the enemy will be under the pressure of a full 100 times the gravity. On the other hand, the people of their Vinsmoke family, because they are wearing combat uniforms with anti-gravity devices, can ignore gravity within the coverage of the gravity device. The goal is to weaken the enemy's strength, and vice versa, it is equivalent to strengthening their own strength. After a while, Niji understood and followed Judge ordered to directly activate the gravity devices throughout the huge conference room. Once activated, the gravity devices were immediately increased to 100 times the limit. Instantly, boom, accompanied by an extremely heavy pressure that appeared out of thin air, it completely enveloped the entire conference room. The huge gravity pressure pressed on everyone's shoulders, making it difficult for them to move. The body seemed to be crushed into pieces of rotten meat at any time. Even the blood flowing in the body was suppressed by this extremely heavy gravity, causing the blood flow rate to become extremely slow. Due to the sudden and extremely strong gravity pressure, the blood and chi surged up, and if you were not careful, you might die of cerebral congestion. Indistinctly, you can even see that the floor of the conference room has sunk several centimeters. The tables, chairs, furniture, etc. placed in the conference room, collapsed and cracked directly under the pressure of 100 times gravity. Turned into countless debris flying everywhere and scattered on the ground. Heavy pressure enveloped everyone's body. Judge, who had not yet activated the anti-gravity device, could feel that his body was extremely heavy and he could not move an inch. Even if he gritted his teeth, he could only take a few steps at most. If he fought under such heavy pressure, he would probably be regarded as a living target by the enemy. Turn on the anti-gravity device. Judge couldn't help sweating on his forehead under the heavy burden on his body. He looked at his eldest daughter Reiju, IG and others, and gave an order with a serious face. At that moment, CJCH, the 4 members of the Vinsmoke family activated the anti-gravity devices installed in their combat uniforms. Soon, as the anti-gravity device was activated, they immediately got rid of the painful feeling of being oppressed by 100 times gravity. In an instant, the body seemed to become extremely light and fluttering. After getting rid of the oppression of 100 times gravity, Judge exhaled heavily and smiled. Then, he turned his head and looked at Luen in front of him. In his opinion, being under the oppression of 100 times gravity, without the combat suit developed by the Vinsmoke family, it is impossible to activate the anti-gravity device to offset the oppression of 100 times gravity. The opponent's situation at this moment must be very embarrassing. Is there really anyone who can resist the oppression of 100 times gravity with only flesh and blood? What a joke. Looking at the entire sea, Judge dare not guarantee that no one can resist 100 times gravity with only flesh and blood. But those who have this terrifying physique are almost all top-level strongmen and monsters who have been famous in the sea for a long time. Such as 4 Emperors Charlotte Linlin, Kaido of the Beasts and the like. These 4 emperors, with only flesh and blood, should be able to withstand 100 times gravity, and even ignore the suppression of 100 times gravity, and still be able to burst out extremely powerful combat power. But the question is, who are those 2? That's the 4 emperors. The emperors of the New World. The judge is not surprised at all that these 2 can do such a thing. It is impossible to deal with the monsters of the 4 emperors level with only 100 times gravity. Judge knows this very well. Obviously, Judge did not think from the beginning to the end that the boy in front of him, who was only 15 or 16 years old, could not have the physique of a monster comparable to the level of the 4 emperors, even if he had Conqueror's Haki. As Judge raised his head confidently and looked at Luen in front of him, he was stunned for a moment. See, under the pressure of 100 times gravity in the conference room, Luen stood there calmly, as if nothing had happened. He did not show any signs of being in a state of embarrassment under the pressure of 100 times gravity. On the contrary, he was as calm and composed as ever. It seemed that he was not affected by the 100 times gravity from beginning to end. With only his flesh and blood, he offset the pressure brought by the 100 times gravity. How is this possible? Seeing Luen act so easily, not only the judge was shocked. Reiju, IG, Niji and others around him were also shocked, staring at Luen, who was under the pressure of 100 times gravity but still did not show any pressure. The other party still seemed to be walking in his own backyard. No pressure. No burden at all. The pressure brought by 100 times gravity? This man can't feel it at all, let alone pressure. Even making this man sweat a little can't be done. In comparison, before the anti-gravity device was turned on, Judge, Reiju and the others were all unable to move or take a step under the pressure of 100 times gravity. On the other hand, the 15 or 16-year-old boy in front of him. Without the premise of the anti-gravity device, the other party was able to forcibly block the pressure brought by 100 times gravity with only his flesh and blood. This result simply overturned Judge's worldview. It was seriously beyond his expectations. It made him dumbfounded. Reiju opened her pink lips slightly, and her beautiful eyes were full of horror. The horror of Luen's flesh and blood body made her simply amazed and unimaginable. What kind of monster is this? Just relying on flesh and blood, he forcibly blocked 100 times gravity. It seems that this 100 times gravity is not even qualified to bring a little pressure to this monster. Reiju, who had personally experienced the horror of 100 times gravity, could not even dream that there was such a monster in this sea. If it was 4 Emperors Kaido of the Beasts, Charlotte Linlin, who could withstand the pressure of 100 times gravity with only flesh and blood, then I could completely understand it. But who is this boy in front of me? He is just a Marine colonel. A boy of 15 or 16 years old. Why does he do that? Judge seemed very out of control. All this was completely beyond his previous expectations. Is this guy really a monster? Is he still a human? The two brothers Ig and Niji were dumbfounded, and their hearts were shaken. Of course they knew it very well. Under the pressure of 100 times gravity, the human body would be subjected to such heavy pressure, just like carrying a towering mountain on its back. It is difficult to move an inch. Only a very few real monsters have extremely terrifying physiques. Those very few examples with physiques like monsters. Only with flesh and blood can he withstand 100 times the gravity. Never thought. Today, they just happened to encounter such an unimaginable monster. The body can withstand 100 times the gravity. It's terrible. Not only does he have the potential of a king, but he also mastered the legendary Conqueror's Haki. Even his physique is so strong that it can be called a monster level? This makes me think of. Judge's heart was slightly shocked. Charlotte Linlin is a freak. According to rumors, Charlotte Linlin, in her childhood, relied on her extremely terrible physique to almost destroy half of the giant village. Her physique is also called World Destroyer, a natural monster. Could it be that? Does this boy in front of me also have this level of physique? For a moment, Judge's mind was full of countless thoughts, and he could not hide his shock at the moment. The 100 times gravity had obviously failed to work on the boy in front of him. This made Judge feel a strong sense of crisis, not good. This boy is not as easy to deal with as imagined. Very tricky, hot. He just pretended to be unaffected. In fact, he was already suppressed by the 100 times gravity and could not move. He wanted to be mysterious and bluff so that we would not dare to act rashly. Niji made a guess. It's very likely. Judge's eyes lit up immediately. There are not many monsters who can be suppressed by 100 times gravity with only flesh and blood, without any burden. What's more, the young man in front of me is just a young boy who has just started out. I told you. Even if you look at the entire ocean, there are not many monsters that can do this, just relying on their flesh and blood to withstand 100 times the gravity. I guess he is now suppressed and can't move, and wants to bluff and scare us. Ig also accepted this guess. Only Reiju, with her excellent sixth sense as a woman, was able to see it. The reality was probably completely different from what they had guessed. As expected, Reiju's guess was verified. Luen took a very casual step. He took a step and walked towards the judge. He was completely free of burden and pressure. He didn't look like he was under 100 times the gravity. Is this the technological product that your Vinsmoke family has carefully prepared for me? 100 times the gravity? That's all? With just this technological product, it will be difficult for you to take me down. Luen smiled faintly. You? Judge widened his eyes and stared blankly at Luen, who was approaching step by step. At this moment, all the luck in his heart had been crushed completely. This monster really blocked 100 times the gravity with only flesh and blood. This, Ig and Niji were stunned, with a look of shock on their faces. Crack. Crack. Affected by 100 times the gravity, every time Luen took a step, the floor tiles under his feet cracked and exploded. The cracks spread like a spider web, covering the entire conference room. Go. Even though he was extremely shocked and frightened, Judge's experience over the years was not in vain. He had a strong psychological quality, otherwise he would not have dared to participate in so many prohibited research experiments. Even though he knew that Luen in front of him was a monster with an extremely terrifying physique, but Judge had no way to retreat. He could not retreat. For this, even if it costs some money, it is worth it. As long as he can capture the monster boy in front of him. He can also extract some bloodline factors from the boy's body, and then study and improve it, and even inject it into the clone soldiers. In this way, can we also create clone soldiers with such monster physique? Of course. All this, Judge only dared to think about it. As soon as Judge's order was issued, Reiju, who was closest to Luen, was the first to launch a surprise attack on Luen. Start the combat suit. The anti-gravity device offsets the suppression brought by 100 times the gravity, and Reiju's movements still appear very fast as lightning, and in an instant he has reached the position behind Luen. Want to launch a sneak attack at the same time. Reiju used a unique trick. Using her unique physical constitution, she had already absorbed a lot of toxins and hidden them in her body, and she could release them at any time. At this moment, facing such a terrible monster enemy in front of her, Reiju naturally did not dare to be arrogant, and immediately covered the many toxins in her body in the direction of Luen. Swish, 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 the colorful pollen toxins, like butterflies, fluttered in the sky, and fell in the direction of Luen, almost completely covering the latter's body. Success. Reiju was delighted, however, at this moment. In vain. From the colorful toxins scattered all over the sky, an eye suddenly appeared. It attacked Reiju's direction accurately. Then, under Reiju's eyes full of astonishment, fear, and shock, She was unable to react at all during the whole process, and was directly strangled by this hand. Chapter 55. Brutal Destruction, Unbreakable Constitution, Unable to Break Defense, Please Customize. Colorful pollen was flying all over the sky, and Reiju was like a poisonous butterfly, releasing extremely toxic toxins from its body. The toxins were flying all over the sky, and covered the place where Luen was. These toxins were even extremely corrosive. This can be seen from the pits and holes corroded by these toxins falling to the ground and corroding the floor tiles. Let alone ordinary people. Even if it was a pirate with a bounty of hundreds of millions, if these toxins penetrated into the body, I am afraid that the internal organs of the body would be quickly exhausted. Unfortunately, at this time, a hand stretched out from the colorful toxins, and had already firmly grasped Reiju's snow-white neck like a white swan, and suddenly pulled it back to the front. Reiju was completely unable to resist. She could only watch helplessly as that hand firmly grasped her snow-white and slender neck, making her body uncontrollably, and was dragged back to the front by the owner of this hand. Feeling the huge force transmitted by this hand, Reiju felt a little desperate, and her beautiful eyes were full of horror. She tried to break free, but she couldn't break free of the control of this hand no matter what. It was like an iron clamp, it held her neck tightly. I saw. Under the coverage of the colorful group of toxins, Luen pinched Reiju's neck with one hand, and looked at Reiju who was full of fear and horror. The flying toxins fell on Luen's body. The toxins that should have been extremely corrosive could not even penetrate and corrode Luen's skin. It only corroded the Marine Colonel's uniform, but there was not even a trace of scar on Luen's body. Unscathed, these toxins seemed to be completely unable to affect Luen. The falling toxins were like ordinary mist, pouring on Luen's skin. He was unmoved throughout the whole process, and did not pay special attention to the poisons wrapped around the body. Seeing this, Reiju's eyes widened. She looked horrified and lost her composure, staring at Luen who was still intact and unharmed in the air covered by the poison. All this was obviously beyond Reiju's expectations. She couldn't even imagine it in her dreams. The monster in front of her was not only under the suppression of 100 times gravity, but also seemed to be fine. Even the poison released from her body could not affect this man. What kind of monster is this? Reiju was horrified. At the same time, as the hand pinching her neck exerted a little force, Reiju immediately felt a suffocation. It was difficult to breathe, her brain became dizzy. She was dizzy. Her mind was scattered. A strong sense of fear surged up in her body uncontrollably. This was the emotion that could not be controlled when life faced the threat of death. Reiju could feel it. If this situation continued, she would probably die on the spot. Reiju's face flushed red as her neck was strangled and blood rushed to her head. Her charming and delicate face was now full of pain. Her limbs were constantly struggling and trembling. Reiju's limbs kept hitting Luen's hand, trying to break free from Luen's control. Her beautiful eyes gradually became bloodshot, her whole body gradually began to feel cold, and the blood could not circulate, causing the blood in her head to rush directly to her forehead, causing her mind to collapse. All the poisons in my body, there is actually no one that can work against this monster. How terrible is this monster's physique? Even the poison is helpless? It has no effect on him? Countless thoughts emerged in Reiju's mind. She gritted her teeth and used the last resort while her mind still retained a certain amount of thinking and consciousness. Released the strongest toxin in her body at Luen's face at close range. As long as you inhale this poison through your respiratory tract, no matter how strong your physique is, this poison will corrode all your internal organs. Reiju launched a final desperate counterattack. The light blue poison she spit out rushed towards Luen's face, trying to enter the latter's body through the respiratory tract. In this regard, Luen witnessed the whole process, but did not deliberately dodge. Maintaining normal breathing, did not deliberately avoid the poison released by the other party because of Reiju's desperate counterattack. So, the poison spit out from Reiju's mouth was directly entered into the respiratory tract by Luen's normal breathing, and quickly penetrated into his internal organs. Seeing this, Reiju was delighted. Her beautiful eyes were full of bloodshot, and her charming face, which was red at the moment, looked a little hideous and terrifying. Die. Die for me, no matter who you are, how terrible your physique is. You will eventually be unable to resist the toxicity produced by the poison entering your body. No matter how strong you are, once the body is poisoned, you will definitely be seriously injured and at the mercy of others. Next, it's your turn to feel this kind of pain. Reiju felt happy in her heart. She seemed to have expected it. The scene in front of her was that Luen's body was poisoned, and he fell to the ground on the spot, bleeding from all 7 holes, and at the mercy of others. She wanted to vent the humiliation she had just suffered. He didn't know how to be gentle with women. After all, she was also a great beauty, unexpectedly. In this guy's hands, she was treated so rudely. This guy obviously wanted to destroy her. Reiju gnashed her teeth and stared at Luen indignantly. She was waiting. The moment when the poison broke out from Luen's body. However, a little time passed. The poison that should have broken out from Luen's body still did not make Luen fall. On the contrary, in Reiju's view, the other party's face was still healthy and did not cause any impact on the other party. Even, the other party did not sweat at all, still looked fine. How is it possible? Reiju was shocked, puzzled, and unbelievable. Seeing that Luen's face was normal, strong and powerful, there was no sign of weakness caused by the poison, and he was as calm, and powerful as ever. It was as if the poison that was inhaled into the other party's respiratory tract and penetrated into the body could not corrode the other party's internal organs. Instead, it was taken as nutrients by the opponent's internal organs, and absorbed by the body. The poison was absorbed and digested as nutrients. Thinking of this, Reiju was completely confused. What kind of monster is this? Is this still a human? Why can't even the poison inhaled into the body have any effect on this monster's body? The opponent is still unscathed. Is this guy's physique so terrible that he is immune to all poisons? No matter how powerful the toxin enters this guy's body, it will be absorbed by the opponent as if it were a nutrient. How can there be such a strong physique? Reiju couldn't accept this result. Her mentality collapsed directly. The strongest means hit the opponent, and the opponent also inhaled her strongest toxin. However, in this case, her strongest means still couldn't do anything to the opponent. No wonder Reiju's mentality collapsed. Anyone would collapse. The strongest means seemed like a joke in the eyes of the opponent. Who can withstand such a blow? Is this your last trick? Luen looked at Reiju, whose mentality collapsed. You are not a human at all. Reiju opened her pink lips slightly, and spoke with difficulty with the last strength, her voice hoarse. You are a complete monster, in human skin. Seeing Reiju's mental collapse, he almost lost the belief in resistance. This made Luen shake his head. His mentality was really fragile. This Vinsmoke family does not seem to be as strong as the outside world rumored. Also known as the King of North Blue? Ruled the entire North Blue for more than 10 years? It's just like that. At the same time, seeing that his eldest daughter Reiju was about to be strangled to death by the monster, Judge finally couldn't help but take action. Electromagnetic blast. With a roar, Judge stepped on the high-tech shoes and kicked towards Luen. Then, with flashes of lightning, zzz, lightning entangled Judge's shoes, and the golden lightning flashed continuously, emitting an extremely dazzling halo. The lightning gathered on Judge's shoes has a very powerful destructive power. Moreover, it can also achieve a double blow physically and mentally. These currents are formed by the high-voltage current of the high-tech shoes under Judge's feet. Even if it is used to deal with pirates with a bounty of hundreds of millions, it is a matter of kicking 10. In an instant, Judge personally went out and attacked Luen. His two sons were naturally unwilling to lag behind and worked hard to rescue Reiju. Spark spin. The gloves worn by IG released extremely high-temperature flames and suddenly attacked Luen. Electric fist. Niji's fist burst into lightning, and the azure lightning wrapped around his fist, shining brightly. He punched Luen. The Vinsmoke family launched a collective attack. Everyone almost took out their best tricks. Facing the attack of 3 people at the same time, Luen did not make too many moves. He pinched Reiju's snow-white neck with his right hand, and then, he pointed Reiju in the direction of IG and Niji. He threw Reiju like a cannonball without hesitation. Fling it out. Throw it out like garbage. He didn't treat Reiju as a beautiful woman at all. Tender love for women? This kind of thing does not exist in Luen's hands. Shua the huge force covered Reiju's entire body. Then, her body broke through the sky at a terrifying speed beyond the speed of sound, tearing through the space and faintly bursting with a sharp sound of breaking through the air. Reiju's body was squeezed by the space brought by this extremely fast forward rush. Her body was slightly twisted, and the bones in her body were faintly broken and cracked. Her face was pale, and the pain surged in her heart. But she still held back. As the eldest daughter of the Vinsmoke family, she was naturally not an embroidered pillow. This little injury was far less than the various experiences she had suffered since childhood. Please give me flowers, in an instant. Reiju's body flew horizontally in the air, and finally hit the bodies of IG and Niji. The two people's attack on Luen was forcibly interrupted. Boom accompanied by a loud bang. Reiju's weak body knocked down IG and Niji, and with the terrible shockwave that erupted from her body, the bodies of the two were also knocked dozens of meters away. Flying backwards all the way, and finally hitting the solid wall of the conference room. Boom. Loud noises. The whole conference room was shaking slightly as if it were an earthquake. Puff. Puff, puff, Reiju, IG, and Niji all vomited blood, their faces turned pale, and their bodies were weak and exhausted, their eyes were filled with anger and horror, staring at Luen's side. The 3 of them were seriously injured. Although they were not seriously injured, it would undoubtedly seriously affect their subsequent combat level. I hope my father's attack will work. The 3 who were killed instantly could only think secretly in their hearts. They couldn't even withstand a face-to-face encounter, and were almost killed instantly by Luen. They could only place their last hope on their own judge. If even the judge couldn't do anything to the other party, then things would be really troublesome. At that time, there might be no one in the entire Germa kingdom who could stop the other party. The other party could do evil and act recklessly in the Germa kingdom. At this moment, Judge has already attacked. Judge was not surprised by the fact that Reiju and the other 2 were killed in one encounter. Therefore, he is still highly focused and facing Luen in front of him. Luen's strength makes Judge feel daunted, $50. When he saw that even the poison released by Reiju was absorbed into Luen's body, but he was still not affected by the poison at all, Judge was already shocked. He realized. The boy in front of him must not be treated as a 15 or 16-year-old boy. The other party is definitely a strong man, even if he looks at the sea, he is also a top-level monster strongman. Maybe not as good as the Four Emperors, but he can definitely be comparable to the cadres under the Four Emperors. Unimaginable. How did a boy of only 15 or 16 years old cultivate to this level? Could it be that he has been cultivating since his mother's womb? Or, is the opponent's innate physique and talent really so terrifying? Not inferior to the Four Emperors? Impossible? This kid can never be on par with the Four Emperors. Judge shook his head and rejected this absurd idea in his heart. His attack finally hit Luen's body head-on. Die. Judge shouted excitedly. The high-voltage current released by the technological shoes under his feet became more and more terrifying, trying to electrocute Luen, who was hit in front of him, and destroy all the cells in his body. Boom. The infinite current swept through Luen's body, trying to destroy his body completely. This high-voltage current penetrated directly into Luen's body, trying to crush his internal organs, meridians, and bones. Zzz, the currents intertwined with each other, and Luen seemed to have become an electric man with currents wrapped around his body. And Judge was still increasing the strength and the volts of the high-voltage current. Under the impact of this high-voltage current and the huge physical force brought by Judge's kick, Luen's body took a few steps back. Crack. Crack. The floor tiles under his feet cracked and shattered. The dense cracks spread like a spiderweb. Where Luen was, the ground under his feet collapsed directly, and a half-meter deep pit fell. Smoke and dust rolled up, and dust lingered, after a while. Judge retracted his right foot that kicked Luen, took a few steps back, stared at Luen with cold eyes, and his expression was full of joy. He seemed to have expected. Under his attack, Luen was seriously injured on the spot. At this time, with the flying dust gradually dissipating, the harsh sound of the electric currents interweaving slowly disappeared. I saw Luen standing in a half-meter deep pit. There were cracks everywhere in all directions. And he himself, except for the damaged marine uniform, his skin didn't even have a scratch. Let alone a scratch. The attack from Judge, the head of the Vinsmoke family, could only leave a tiny, inconspicuous white scratch on Luen's skin. It was like hitting the hardest steel plate in the world. It could only leave a white scratch. Injured, it couldn't even break the defense. Silence. The atmosphere became dead silent, silent. When seeing Luen up close, his whole body was still intact. Whether it was Judge or the three Reiju siblings lying not far away, they all froze on the spot, their hearts and minds were shaken, showing their loss of composure, fear, and shock. Chapter 56. A stunning sword. Split the Germa kingdom, please customize. Dust fell all over the sky. Luen stood still. Under his feet was a half-meter deep pit, surrounded by spider web-like cracks. The huge conference room was dead silent. From head to toe, Luen had no injuries. In other words, Judge's all-out attack was not even qualified to threaten Luen. His skin was not even scratched. As for such a result, neither Judge, Reiju, IG, Niji and others could accept it, and their minds were blank. Judge was almost incoherent and could not help himself. How is it possible? How is this possible? I have clearly tried my best and used the highest high-voltage current. I couldn't even break the defense of this monster? What kind of freak is he? How can his physique be so strong? I can't even break his defense. Although the previous attack was not a full-strength attack by Judge. But the problem is that the skin of the monster opposite did not have any scratches, and this result inevitably overturned Judge's cognition. He thought to himself. Even if we look at the New World, his strength is not weaker than those pirates with bounties of up to 400 million or 500 million. Although such strength is not the best in the New World, it is at least not inferior to the cadres of the Four Emperors. However, even with such strong strength, he can't even break the skin of the monster in front of him? Can't break the defense at all? Judge fell into deep self-doubt. His inner beliefs were being shaken. In the past, those tricks that were almost invincible, but they all didn't work on the monster in front of him. Not far away, Reiju's beautiful eyes widened and her charming, mature and delicate face was full of deep shock. How could this happen? Father tried his best to attack, but he didn't break the defense. How terrible is the defense of this monster? She didn't dare to imagine what their Vinsmoke family should do when facing this, 823, monster. She tried her best, but she couldn't use the toxins in her body to defeat the other party. From beginning to end, she didn't even have the qualifications to influence the other party. And now, even the full-strength attack of his father Judge seemed to be tickling the opponent. This result cast a huge shadow on the entire Vinsmoke family. This is my father's high-voltage current. In an instant, the high-voltage current can stun a super-large sea king. But, it is completely ineffective against the boy in front of him. IG knew how high the current contained in his father Judge's move was. It is no exaggeration to say that, Even if it is used to deal with super large sea kings, those with a size of tens of meters or even hundreds of meters, this high voltage current alone is enough to make the sea king lose consciousness instantly. I never thought that this high voltage current would hit the boy in front of me, but he was still unharmed. How terrifying is this boy's physique? It's even more exaggerated than those super large sea kings. He must be playing tricks, right? His internal organs must have been damaged to varying degrees after being hit by the high voltage current from my father just now. It's just that you can't see it from the outside. Don't be scared by him. Niji suppressed his fear and shock in his heart and still insisted. He understood that these explanations were not sustainable at all. But perhaps only by understanding it in this way can he comfort his fragile and scarred heart. Do we have other ways to deal with this monster? Iji's throat was dry and his voice trembled slightly. Niji was silent. Reiju lowered his head. Nothing could be done. Facing a monster of this level, even their Vinsmoke family, who had sufficient resources, was helpless for a while. We can only rely on our father. The only thing the three could do was to place their hopes on their father, Judge. But the reality was different from what they imagined. The father, Judge, whom they had high hopes for, was already in a serious state of mental imbalance, completely losing his former calmness, composure. It was as if a certain belief that he firmly believed in suddenly collapsed. As a result, Judge's mind was in a mess, he was at a loss, and his speech was incoherent. It was as if he was in a state of madness. Judge's mentality was completely broken. Are you tickling me? After a long silence, Luen spoke slowly. He calmly patted off the dust on his body. After enduring Judge's full force attack, Luen had a more intuitive understanding of the strength of his strongest physique in the world. Without using armament Haki, he blocked the poison from Reiju and Judge's high voltage current with his pure flesh and blood. From beginning to end, Luen's body was not damaged at all. This shows how strong the strongest physique in the world is after fusing the three-peat four emperors. Forget it. Get rid of you as soon as possible and leave work early. Seeing that Judge and all the other members of the Vinsmoke family were almost on the verge of emotional collapse, Luen didn't plan to waste too much time. It had only been less than 20 minutes since he entered the Germa kingdom. It was far from time to leave work. In order to leave work early and slack off, Luen was ready to get rid of the entire Vinsmoke family at once. But considering that the Vinsmoke family is the king of North Blue and one of the member states recognized by the world government, it is also the leader of all the main clans in North Blue. Such an identity is not simple. If the entire Vinsmoke family is destroyed, I am afraid that it will cause a lot of trouble in the future. After thinking about it, Luen made a decision, so. He slowly took out a well-made samurai sword. This is the saber he borrowed from Chris Rear Admiral. The saber carried by a Marine Rear Admiral is naturally much better than the samurai swords used by Luen in the past. Even if it does not reach the quality of a good sword, it should not be much different. For Luen, it is enough for the time being. After weighing the weight of the samurai sword in his hand, Luen looked straight at the judge in front of him. One sword. Luen raised a finger. What do you mean? Judge opened his lips slightly, with a look of horror on his face, spirit. At this moment, he has deeply understood how powerful is the young man in front of him. It is definitely not something that the Vinsmoke family can try to deal with. Facing this kind of monster, Judge even has the illusion of facing a four emperors. Although this makes him feel extremely absurd, but this alone is enough to show how heavy the pressure Luen has brought to Judge. So much so that the other party has the illusion of facing four emperors. One knife, destroy your entire Germa kingdom, Luen said bluntly. Hearing this, Jiwei Quan, Reiju, Ig, and Niji were also stunned. Are you sure you are not kidding? Do you know how large the area of the Germa kingdom is? The Germa kingdom, which consists of 10 giant battleships, has an area diameter of no less than tens of kilometers. You can split the Germa kingdom with one sword? From now on, I, Vinsmoke Judge, will write my name backwards. Judge blurted out. Although Luen is very powerful, Judge still does not think that Luen is strong enough to destroy the entire Germa kingdom with one sword. Only monsters who truly stand at the top level of the sea have such power, such as Admiral of Headquarters. Or, four emperors, even as powerful as 7 warlords of the sea. Not all Shichibukai can do such a shocking thing. Do you think you are Hawkeye? Judge stared at Luen coldly with a fearful look on his face. The 3 Reiju siblings also treated Luen with great fear. En's words were not taken seriously. Do you really think that the many defense systems in the Germa kingdom are fake? Once the Germa kingdom is attacked and destroyed, the defense system will be triggered immediately. A series of defense measures are taken for the interior and exterior of the Germa kingdom to enhance the overall defense. Even if the world's #1 swordsman Hawkeye takes action personally, he may not be able to destroy the entire Germa kingdom with one sword. What's more, in front of him is just a boy of only 15 or 16 years old. It is impossible for him to be so strong even if he has been practicing swordsmanship since his mother's womb, right? Arrogant. Reiju admitted. The monster in front of her was indeed very strong, stronger than all the enemies she had encountered before. But the opponent had a fatal flaw. Whether it was just now, relying on flesh and blood, he did not dodge or evade to withstand the high-voltage current from his father Judge. Now, he threatened to destroy the entire Germa kingdom with 10 swords. All this shows that the biggest flaw of the monster in front of him is too arrogant. Too arrogant. Simply arrogant. Even if your uncle Kizaru Admiral personally takes action, it may not be able to destroy the entire Germa kingdom. Not to mention, you are just a teenager of 15 or 16 years old. Even if you are a monster, you will definitely not be able to do it. Reiju thought. Luen did not explain too much. There is no need for this. It is a pure waste of time to explain to these people. Destroying the Germa kingdom of your Vinsmoke family is equivalent to destroying the foundation on which your entire family depends for survival. As for whether I can do it, we'll know after we give it a try. So far, Luen has never taken any action seriously. Now, he can take it a little seriously, of course. Destroying a small kingdom like Germa is not something that he would really go all out to do. He plans to. This knife is slightly more powerful than the usual attack. Under the gaze of Judge, Reiju and other members of the Vinsmoke family, Luen slowly raised the samurai sword in his hand, aimed at the center of the entire conference room, facing the east, holding the hilt with his right hand. At the same time, as Luen's mind moved, an extremely terrifying and sharp aura slowly emanated from his body. His eyes also became particularly spirited, as sharp as an eagle. Boom! The sharp momentum soared into the sky. In an instant, an astonishing might of a great swordsman swept across the entire conference room in an instant. Covering the entire venue, the monstrous edge was released from Luen's body. Facing this might of a world-class great swordsman, there were almost no swordsmen in this sea who could resist it head-on, and they all put down their samurai swords and bowed their heads. The invisible and intangible edge of the great swordsman has completely covered the entire conference room, Judge and others' bodies. It was as if they were in a cold ice cave. The body felt the pervasive cold wind, and the biting cold made their hair stand on end, their bones shudder, and their scalps tingle. This is. Sensing the huge change in Luen's momentum, Judge and others looked sideways, widened their eyes, and were shocked. This fierce aura pressure was so intimidating that they dared not look directly at it. Especially Luen's sharp eyes at this moment. Like a sharp blade. Anyone who looked at him would be blinded by this pair of sharp eyes like a blade, and the remaining fighting spirit and faith in the heart would be defeated. Good, strong sword pressure. This level of momentum. I actually seem to see the world's #1 swordsman Haki. Judge couldn't help but lose his voice. How is this possible? Even he was shocked by this absurd idea. The world's #1 swordsman Haki is recognized as the world's #1. The boy in front of him is just a 15 or 16-year-old boy. Although the opponent is very strong, he shouldn't have the swordsmanship to match Haki's world-class swordsmanship, right? That's Haki, the most sacred and powerful existence in the hearts of countless swordsmen in the sea. In the hearts of countless swordsmen, Haki is a god-like existence. My body is unable to move under this aura pressure. 1. The two brothers Ig and Niji trembled all over, with fear on their faces, and were shocked. Just the pressure of aura made them unable to move. Even Reiju, who was determined, could not avoid being frightened by the fierce aura bursting out of Luen's body, and her whole face turned pale and frightened. She had the honor of witnessing the scene of the world's #1 swordsman taking action. And at this moment, the fierce aura she felt from Luen was exactly the same. Extremely similar. No, the aura I felt from this monster is much more terrifying than the deterrent power brought by the Hawkeye man's attack that I witnessed with my own eyes. Reiju's heart was shocked. At this moment, she couldn't help but have an idea. This monster boy in front of her. Could it be that he can really destroy the entire Germa kingdom with one sword? It happened in a flash. In fact, the mental journey of Judge, Reiju and others only happened in an instant. They witnessed Luen's every move and saw with their own eyes that the other party held a samurai sword, aimed at the center of the conference room. A very clean and sharp cut. It seemed to be a light cut. It seemed to be a warm-up exercise. In fact, the moment when En swung the samurai sword. 0.7 in an instant, Shua the blade cut through the sky, trying to split the space, and a sharp and piercing sound of breaking through the air burst out. It caused the surrounding space to twist, wriggle, and tremble. Buzz. Buzz. In a twisted space. A slash that gathered Luen's infinite sword energy condensed on the sharp blade of the samurai sword, and then burst out with a bang in the front. The azure blue slash, like a crescent moon rotating in the air, is magnificent, emitting dazzling colors, dazzling. At the same time, the fierce momentum exuded seems to be enough to destroy everything in the world. Anything that blocks it will be torn apart, destroyed, and cut off. Shua the azure blue slash released from the samurai sword in Luen's hand cuts through the sky all the way, at an extremely high speed several times faster than the speed of sound, like a meteor flashing by, and it is almost here ultimate. The space was trembling. Deaf. This roar conveyed Judge, Reiju and others' ears, which caused their ears to deaf and buzzing. The outside is constantly cracking, crushing, and falling. Chapter 57. Destroying Heaven and Earth. Cutting the sea with a sword, please customize. The solid wall of the conference room was penetrated by this slash. It was like cutting a piece of tofu. There was no obstruction throughout the process. The brilliant blue slash penetrated the wall of the conference room, extending all the way to attack the farther area of the Germa kingdom. The aftermath of the slash even directly cut off the entire ground. Crack. A hideous and terrifying crack appeared on the surface of the ground, which was bottomless and like an abyss. Along the passage of this slash, the length of the crack was also constantly extending and expanding rapidly. The Germa kingdom seemed to have an earthquake. The aftermath of this sharp slash had a very serious impact on the ground, ceiling, and walls. Next to the conference room was a warehouse full of steel. These steels were some steel scraps left by the Vinsmoke family when they were developing technology. But these steels were almost impeccable in terms of material and hardness. However, as the wall of the conference room was split open by a knife, this slash penetrated the steel warehouse, facing this pile of steel that looked like a mountain of garbage. With just one encounter, the steel was immediately forcibly split and cut off by this slash. It turned into countless debris and iron body flew everywhere. Under the shock wave of the slash, countless iron body debris scattered in all directions. Bang! 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 The flying steel fragments hit the walls on both sides. You can clearly see the cuts of these steels, which are as smooth as a mirror. Then, it penetrated the warehouse where the steel was piled up, and this slash continued to rush forward. It also split a large material factory. The factory used for smelting materials was directly chopped and crushed in the middle by this slash. The huge machines and tools for smelting steel were even cut in half. As a result, the entire factory stopped operating immediately, and gray smoke continued to rise. The machine had obviously completely failed and self-destructed. Boom! The severed machine fell from the sky and hit the factory heavily, causing a series of vibrations on the ground, and the roar sounded like thunder. The huge factory had become a ruin in an instant. The most obvious thing was the slash that split the factory. A hideous crack valley was clearly visible on the ground, as deep as an abyss. Jinping pierced the bottom of the entire giant warship. The Germa kingdom is not a kingdom on an island, but a combination of 10 giant warships. In essence, the Germa kingdom is 10 ships. Now, this azure blue world shaking slash split the factory inside the Germa kingdom and cut off the surface of the ground. Naturally, the overall structure of the bottom of the giant ship could not be spared and was split in half. Such a phenomenon is still happening. About 2 kilometers away from the conference room, there is a factory specializing in the manufacture of clone soldiers. This factory is a priority for the Vinsmoke family. The Vinsmoke family has been able to rule North Blue for decades, relying on this technology of clone soldiers. It can infinitely replicate powerful clone soldiers, and when equipped with full armor, it can rival the pirates with bounties of tens of millions in the sea. It is no wonder that even the world government is a little afraid of the Vinsmoke family, which can mass-produce thousands of such clone soldiers. As long as the resources are sufficient, the Vinsmoke family can even mass-produce millions of clone soldiers and dominate one side. So, the clone factory is definitely the core treasure of the Vinsmoke family. At this time, due to the shocking Conqueror's Haki that enveloped nearly half of the Germa kingdom not long ago, most of the workers in the factory were unconscious and unconscious. But there are still a few who are tenacious and forcibly blocked the mental impact caused by the Conqueror's Haki, and remained conscious and did not fall down. They were chatting about the big commotion that just happened. They had a fierce exchange around the amazing Conqueror's Haki. Just as the survivors who had escaped being killed instantly by Conqueror's Haki were communicating with each other. In vain. A dazzling blue slash penetrated the wall of the clone arsenal and swept across with an overwhelming momentum, trying to cut off time and everything. Boom! The entire wall was directly pierced and split. The wall collapsed. Countless rubble and debris fell and flew everywhere. For a moment, the whole factory was in chaos. Several survivors stared blankly with horror, shock, and horror on their faces. The slash that filled their vision was constantly attacking the location of the factory. But they could not move at all. Under the amazing pressure brought by this sharp slash, their bodies had already been out of their control. As if they had received a stress response, their hair stood up and they felt a tingling sensation on their scalp. This is. They opened their mouths and stared blankly at the slash that pierced through the main facilities of the factory. Boom! The main equipment of the factory was instantly split in half, and the shocking explosion was like thunder, resounding in all directions, making the ears of these survivors buzz and their heads feel a little dizzy. ZZZZ, the main facilities that were split were emitting smoke. Severely damaged. Completely out of order. Unable to maintain the task of mass production of clone soldiers. This is the Germa kingdom. The base camp of the Vinsmoke family, the king of North Blue.
Who can release such a terrible and shocking slash here, and destroy the entire clone factory?
Several survivors lost their voices in horror. Not only the main equipment of the factory was split in half, but even the solid walls of the factory, which were made of countless hard materials, were inevitably split directly. Just like cutting tofu. This is what shocked them. It seems to be the conference room. Is it the direction where Conqueror's Haki just broke out? That is to say, this earth-shattering and sharp slash broke out from the conference room. However, as far as I know, No one in the Vinsmoke family is good at swordsmanship. Who is the one who broke out such an amazing slash? Could it be the Marine who broke out Conqueror's Haki? The Marine boy who was invited to negotiate with the Vinsmoke family. A boy who is only 15 or 16 years old. At such an age, he can actually have such a terrifying level of swordsmanship? It's unbelievable. There was a lot of discussion. Have you forgotten? The conference room is about several kilometers away from our clone arsenal. A weak voice sounded. Suddenly, the whole place fell into a dead silence. A slash that penetrated a distance of several thousand meters could actually have such amazing destructive power? Thinking of this, the survivors present couldn't help but take a breath. What kind of monster did the Vinsmoke family invite? Their hearts trembled. At this time, someone seemed to have thought of something and hurriedly said, "If I remember correctly, there seems to be an automatic defense system inside the Germa kingdom. Whether it is internal destruction or external attack. In short, once attacked, the internal and external defense devices of the Germa kingdom will be immediately activated to resist the destruction from the inside and outside." Hearing this, others woke up one after another. Quick, go and turn on the automatic defense device. With such a big commotion, the automatic defense device has already been passively triggered. Just as they said, the Germa kingdom suffered such terrible damage that the automatic defense device had already been passively triggered. C. Accompanied by a burst of alarms inside the Germa kingdom. At the same time, giant steel plates like city walls, up to 3 to 5 meters thick, were set up around the direction of the Azure Slash, setting up numerous obstacles to block it. The Germa kingdom's automatic defense device has been fully activated. In order to block this amazing slash, should it be able to block it? These defense devices are made of the highest standard materials. Moreover, they use monsters of the 4 Emperors and Admiral level as reference targets for simulation. As a member of the Germa kingdom, they still have great confidence in the technological products they developed. Under their expectant eyes, the defensive devices that set up numerous obstacles like city walls were also hit from the front by the shocking slash that attacked. Here it comes. They were fully focused and concentrated. In an instant, boom, accompanied by a loud bang. The entire Germa kingdom trembled again, the ground shook. Then, crack, crack, a series of pleasant sounds like glass breaking rang out. In less than a moment, those 3 to 5 meter thick hard obstacles were directly penetrated from the front by that slash, and cut off from the middle. Split in half, it could not withstand the amazing destructive power caused by this slash. The split defense device completely failed, it fell heavily to the side. Rumble, it was like the sky was falling. The entire ruined factory roared and trembled inside and outside. Dust flew. Witnessing the defense device being split in half from the front by a slash, the Vinsmoke family's scientific researchers found it difficult to accept and were horrified, their bodies stagnant in place. The automatic defense device that they had spent countless efforts to create was never thought to be so vulnerable in the face of the amazing destructive power of that slash. It's totally a different level, how can it be so strong? The defense device we spent so much effort to create was split in half like tofu. Now I can basically be sure, today, our Germa kingdom has ushered in an unprecedented terrifying enemy. There are a few unlucky people who were smashed to pieces by the fragments of the broken defense device, and their brains were smashed on the spot. They fell to the ground and became cold corpses. The whole Germa kingdom was in chaos, there were cracks and broken holes everywhere. It was devastating and shocking. The slash that penetrated tens of thousands of meters was still rushing forward, and the cut ground was cracked with more and more cracks, like spiderweb-like cracks extending everywhere along the hideous abyss of the ground. It seems that the Germa kingdom, which consists of 10 giant warships, may sink into the sea at any time today. Outside the Germa kingdom, buildings built on giant battleships are colorful and have their own characteristics. Some of them stand above the clouds, and there are also many castle-like buildings. Suddenly, at this moment, an extremely dazzling blue slash penetrated the sky, tore through the void, and rushed out from the inner area of the Germa kingdom at an astonishing speed. It was unstoppable and destroyed the world. In an instant, this slash split a castle on the spot. The entire towering castle was split in half, and it fell, collapsed, and fell to both sides. Countless rubble and debris fell on the deck of the giant battleship, and flew everywhere due to the amazing shockwave. Boom! The collapsed castle caused a small earthquake. Then, the second building was also cut in the middle by this slash. The third, fourth, fifth, it was like a demolition team. This slash went all the way across, destroying 7 or 8 buildings in succession without stopping. At this time, the members of the Germa kingdom who were in the nearby area watched in shock, fear, and horror as buildings collapsed one after another. What's going on? Is the end of the world coming? What an amazing slash! Finally, this slash came to the outermost area of the Germa kingdom, directly penetrated the deck fence of the giant warship, and destroyed the last building. Then it sank directly into the vast ocean next to it. In an instant, the slash penetrated the sea, boom! With a shocking roar, like thunder, resounding hundreds of miles away. The entire C-997 was actually split by this slash. Split in half, the calm sea surface fell into a bottomless abyss. The surging sea water rolled up and rushed to the center of the heaven. The sea water hung upside down. The waves surged and hung thousands of meters high in the sky. Crash. The calm sea surface suddenly turned upside down, and the sea currents surged wildly and hit each other, just like a storm coming, becoming extremely turbulent. A hideous and terrifying abyss split the entire endless sea into two halves. The sea was split in two. The scene was extremely shocking. It was thrilling. The azure slash went through the sea 10 kilometers away, splitting the sea surface for 10 kilometers. Indistinctly, there was a sense of déjà vu as if the entire sea area was cut off. It frightened away countless sea kings hiding in the deep sea. The sea kings fled in panic, pissing and pissing. The huge waves of the seawater that rose up were like the Milky Way hanging upside down in the sky at night. At the same time, on the decks of 3 warships near the Germa kingdom, more than 3,000 Marines, led by Marine Rear Admiral Chris, 3 Commodores, and 8 Colonels, witnessed this shocking scene. They were shocked and their eyes widened, dumbfounded. What's going on? Chris originally planned to grit his teeth and lead 3,000 elite Marines to test the 20,000 fully armed clone soldiers in front of him, and then look for an opportunity to sneak into the Germa kingdom to reinforce Luen. Unexpectedly, this sudden and stunning slash split the entire sea in half. This amazing change forced him to stop his current inner thoughts. Hey, is it true? Even the sea was split in half? Chris's throat was dry and his face was full of horror. He couldn't imagine who could have made such a terrifying and stunning slash. But he could be sure of one thing. The person who could split the sea with a slash must be the world's top swordsman. I'm afraid he is no less powerful than Haki, one of the 7 warlords of the sea. Watching the rolling waves hanging upside down in the sky, the calm sea surface was forcibly split in the middle, leaving an underwater abyss that seemed to lead directly to the bottom of the sea. These scenes shocked the hearts of the Marines around, and even their worldviews were strongly shaken. Chris Rear Admiral. Look, a Marine Commodore touched Chris's shoulder, and pointed with horror at the Germa kingdom, which was composed of 10 giant warships not far away. What are you looking at? Chris was still immersed in the strong mental shock brought by the terrifying slash that cut through the sea, and he was slow to come back to his senses. He looked in the direction pointed by the Commodore. At that moment, Chris's expression suddenly froze. He opened his mouth and lost his voice subconsciously. The entire Germa kingdom, it was actually split in half?